shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make.
Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
Hey, chat. Do I need to? Is chat misbehaving? I don't have mods because my expectation is that people that watch my videos treat others with respect. And if you don't want to do that very simple thing, then you lose the ability to chat. You lose the ability to hang out in my chat room. Very easy. So if you want to be a dickwad, that's cool. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying you can't in my chat. Get her, Ruby.
All right.
Get her, Onyx. I don't know how else to describe how crazy white carpets with dogs. You are a brave man. No, I am a man that I'm a man that is filled with regrets. would constantly, I paid for like the extra whatever, like the extra cleanable carpets, but we have to clean our carpets constantly. Absolute insanity. Hey, you don't have to say sorry. Do your job, man. You're a mod. They're 14 now, but this started back when like they were 13. Wood floors. Yeah, I have wood floors in the rest of the house, just not in my office. Like most of my house is LVP. Okay. Let's talk about. Yeah, puts far left DC district in court in charge. Does anybody know when they're voting on this border bill? When are they actually voting on this? Is this today? No, I have mods. They know that I pretty much allow anything except, like outright racism and really just being an asshole is the only thing that's going to get you cut from my chat. Jeremy, my wife knew Todd when she was going to school in Montana. It sounds like they're trying to get the kid to her birth mom, who was abusive to the kid and lost custody. The mom is now in Canada. Great. It's Wednesday in the Senate. Okay. Yeah, 116 billion and 100 billion dollars of it goes to wars in other countries. Wars in 116 billion dollars and 100 billion of it goes to wars in other countries. By the way, not a dollar for border protection in the United States. Not one single solitary dollar. It's wild to me. It's absolutely insane. I'm sorry, Ukraine. Just because I say no more money for Ukraine. Sorry, we've given you enough money and enough time. You're on your own. That doesn't mean I'm a pro-Russia guy. It means you've had enough money and time. I'm out. I'm done. Sorry, Israel, you have enough of your own money to beat a bunch of people in the desert. I'm pretty sure Israel can defeat a bunch of sand individuals. Israel doesn't need our money. Fuck them both. America first. The so-called Republican who negotiated this bill has got to be the biggest moron since AOC, and Rhino's like, Dan Crenshaw backed it. Yeah. It'll never pass the House, though. Let Europe fund Ukraine. Yep. Europe's got plenty of money, right? Holler at me when Russia takes over a few nations in Europe. By the way, people calling Tucker Carlson a traitor. I wonder if Tucker's going to do it. Do you think Tucker would do an interview? Everyone's saying it's Putin that he's doing an interview with. But what about Julian Assange? Wouldn't that be, I mean, I know what Putin's going to say, by the way. It'd be interesting to see if he was interviewing Julian Assange. The only reason, I'm telling you, this is just my opinion, I guess. I want to, like, clarify. This is just my opinion. I don't know what it is. It's not that big of a... Where's Onyx? Hey, Bean! Come here, Onyx. Come here. Come here. Come here, Onyx. Come here. Come here. Yes. Good girl. Up, up. Hey. Oh, beefcake. Who's a beefcake? Hmm? What do you got to say? Hmm? Pork? No, that's a good puppy. That's a good puppy. Not Assange, Snowden, I mean. Sorry, Snowden. That's who I meant. Snowden. Yeah, Snowden. My bad. Doobie doobie doo. All right. Wow, Tim didn't cover the free money for immigrants. Should I cover that? Putin is more accessible than Assange, I imagine. Yeah, probably. Mahaka. Yeah, probably. Yeah, she got big quick. She's a German Shepherd. They do that. They get real big. They like max out their size pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we got a bunch of them.
You're
My
going to have
wife.
to get you a sippy cup
Fuck
with some
people.
crazy
People
straws.
suck.
I love crazy straws. The only problem is, like, they're a pain in the ass to clean. Everything's working fine for me from a video perspective. Hey, Bean. Oh, Tim covered on IRL Friday, but not in a standalone. I'm starting to like actively eat Tim's lunch a little bit. You know, because I went out of my way to not cover political things because you know, we share so much of an audience. But then he started covering culture shit, so I'm like, okay, well, fine. It's not like he ever said he wasn't going to, you know, but I've always kind of done that as a professional courtesy. But I feel like it's fair game, yeah. He's getting lazier about his political topics, usually 2 to 3 days late. Oh. You know what? All I noticed is that Tim's comment section hates him. My comment section isn't anything like that. Bring back Midwestly. I figured I would just start covering it on the quartering, because why not? You know? Why make people do second channel, you know? Drink some soap water through the crazy straw to clean it. Ah, now that's thinking. Tim's excuses for not streaming on Rumble are retarded and cringe. Has he actually ever given a reason why he doesn't stream? Oh, do you know who? Did you see this shit? Pardon my French, sorry. Did you see this? I sent it to Chris, too. New Rumble's partnership promises a caffeine-infused boost for freedom of speech. Coffee with the secret ingredient of free speech is the latest addition to the parallel economy. Rumble is a high-growth video platform cloud service provider in collaboration with 1775 Coffee. Literally who? I got to admit, Chris, I told Chris I was kind of pissed off about this. Like, he knows I have a coffee company. He asked me about it a long time ago. Why wouldn't they partner with me? That's kind of annoying. I mean, like, I'm only kind of annoyed by it, you know? Did you see a video where Jimmy Dore referenced you? No. I'll give you permission to put the link in chat. You read my chat when Marianne Wilson, he definitely reads it. Oh. Like, dude. You know what I mean? My coffee's under attack. Tim claimed that Rumble will kick him off for the same reason YouTube does. That's bullshit.
What? Rumble does not suck. YouTube
I'm not
sucks.
political offering enough. Because
while I'm broadcasting on
yeah, maybe they're paying
YouTube,
them.
I'm also broadcasting on Rumble.
By the way, Coffee Brand Coffee has our
YouTube,
Valentine's Day
wait till
gift
you
box,
say
as
something
well
Rumble
as
doesn't like, or
ladies.
YouTube doesn't like.
Limited
Wait till you say something YouTube
edition,
doesn't like.
10% off with
You
Cupid
get
10.
A week off to get 30 days off, or they'll
How much
just
coffee do you
demonetize
drink every
you
day?
completely.
I have like 2 cups. My wife has a cup.
They've demonetized people who haven't even broken.
I would
the
partner
rules.
with Rumble. Rumble's
Because they didn't
apolitical
like
too.
it.
Oh, pretty much amounts to, I'm staying on YouTube. We need a voice there, but I'm going to bitch about being censored. I'm going to turn off the show on his own website. Yeah. Okay. Can I say something about... I'm not going to say this isn't about Tim. You have to sell it to people, Jeremy, not expect them to come to you. Bro, nobody sells coffee brand coffee harder than me. I just gave people a break
as smooth as
after
YouTube,
my hard
no,
Christmas
because YouTube's
push.
been around for 15 years longer. But they're getting good fast. They have their own
Do I
broadcasting
sell
software
red drink
coming
on your
out
site?
now.
No, I don't.
The Rumble Studio works pretty well. It's in beta still.
Everybody,
I am a beta tester for 'em.
this actually, I won't talk about Tim in this. I think Tim does good work. I support everything he does, but Tim and Jordan Peterson, and up until very recently, Patrick Bet-David. Let me explain their grift to you, okay? Patrick Bet-David and Jordan Peterson are 100 millionaires. Yeah, Jeremy used Tim swatting to sell coffee. Bro, he lifts. That's true, I did. I think it's what got me swatted, too. Nobody pushes their product more than me. So you have Jordan Peterson, Patrick Bet-David and Jordan Peterson both have more than $100 million in the bank. I tried to partner with Crowder.
You don't have to apologize.
I gave Crowder every possible reason,
But it'd be
every
nice.
possible chance, every possible money making.
Lemon pound
literally, I would do everything, and he would have to do nothing but cash a paycheck, and he still said no. So what else can you do? You know, what else can you do? I guess it wasn't enough money. I'm not sure. He's also got a lot going on. Everybody who is super rich, let's just say Con Inc. If I say Con Inc., do you know who I'm talking about? Everybody in Con Inc., here's their grift. Okay, and I don't mean grift in a negative manner. This is their value prop. Ready? Oh my God, I'm saying something so controversial that everybody on Earth is trying to censor me. Oh my God, the only way you can fight censorship is by giving me $10 a month. Right? That's the Daily Wire. That's what the Daily Wire offers for $10 a month. That's what Jordan Peterson offers. That's what Tim Pool offers. That's what Patrick David offers. These are all people who are already super rich, but they want you to pay them more money to fight censorship, which is 100% fine with me. The problem is that none of them support new tech unless you bully them into it. Ricky Sky says, you should have physically threatened Chris Jeremy. No. He's still my boss. I mean, let me just use Tim as an example. He himself said, and this was months ago, so it's probably a bigger number, that he had 50,000 members at tincast.com. Do you know how much money that is? That's $6 million a year. $500,000 a month just from timcast.com members. Plus another $200,000 a month in YouTube AdSense. Plus another $100,000 a month in YouTube Super Chats. Conservatively. Okay? That's $800,000 a month he's making. That's $10 million a year Tim Pool makes. And he's earned every penny of it. Every penny. And I hope he makes more. All I ask is that he also be willing to lose a few percentage points by supporting new tech. Is that unreasonable? That's all my problem has ever been. And every time you try to press these people on it, they think you're stupid. They make the same BS excuse. Oh, well, we gotta stay on YouTube. Nobody's saying you have to leave YouTube, Patrick Bet-David or Jordan Peterson or Tim Pool. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. It's a short-term loss, I will concede, okay? Here's the thing. these are the realities, all right? If I had 3,700 concurrent viewers on YouTube, I would probably make $300 to $500 a day in super chats. 3,500 viewers on Rumble might make 50. That's true. I'm not going to pretend like it's apples to apples. But it won't stay that way. It'll grow. And the more you live stream and the more you tell people, like, hey, I'm spreading... You could literally say, like, I took a 10% pay cut to come over here, join my locals, right? You could use it to grift your memberships.
I would say it's okay to say
Contact
that.
Michael Francis. He's on Rumble
he
now.
knows
Just
his
Mafia
tech stuff,
brand
but
coffee. I don't know who that is.
He is pretty
But I will
ignorant as
happily
well.
white label for somebody. Salty almost hit 40K Sunday night. Maybe you and Salty should team up. Well, Salty
We'll have
doesn't
something else to
need me.
do,
He's
but I'm in the
killing
middle
it.
of doing some stuff too. I got something else I'm gonna play. We got like 10 things going on right now, guys. Fucking Monday.
Jimmy Dore mentioned me, huh? Don't delete that. Oh, it's about Taylor Lorenz.
So I don't know if you saw this.
Old Greenwich.
Or her uncle?
Okay, so this, as somebody did an investigation into her family history, it's
The
not.
quartering, right?
What's that?
The quartering, was that the...
Well, the quartering covered it.
Okay.
The person who actually did it has been pulled off Twitter. And
That's correct.
Elon did not let him back on, but he did a long thing about how all of these supposedly progressive left journalists, they're these incredibly rich kids, and this is the thing. They are rich enough to get their family history scrubbed from the internet, and particularly Taylor Lorenz. So if you
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get back to this. Okay, I really don't care about Rumble's coffee or whatever. Like, it's fine, you know. And that is a correct. I was covering someone else's thread, so that's correct. I'm gonna say one other thing, by the way. A lot of people say, "Oh, but Tim uses Rumble architecture for his website." You know that all the videos he embeds on his website are still YouTube videos, so he can get ad revenue from them. He doesn't even use the YouTube. He doesn't even use the Rumble embed tool. He embeds YouTube videos on timcast.com. So he doesn't use. Everyone always says, "Oh, he uses Rumble Tech." No, he doesn't. He's still, the only thing that matters on his website are his video players, and that's YouTube. What's Taylor's family history? Well, we don't really have time to go through it all, but the upshot is she went to, I believe it was middle school and high school that was $80,000 a year. It was like in Switzerland or something like that. She went to the elite of elite schools, and her uncle owns the Internet Archive.
I am
It
going
was
to
like the
agree.
CEO
It's
of the
for Monday.
Internet
He's not
Archive
coming
or
with
something
anything
like that.
new and exciting.
So he was able to
Well,
scrub
sometimes
all
he
of
does.
Taylor's
but
old
today
tweets
really hasn't been so far.
and all this kind of stuff. What I need to probably do, by the way, is on the night Salty streams, I need to just get my ass out of bed and stream after him. I need to draft off of Salty. He's killing it. That's back when 80K was a lot of money too, yeah. So, she has lived hundreds of years and taken many names. Yeah, that's right. Okay. I don't want to... Look, I think Tim does great work. I don't want to, like, bash on Tim. I just wish he would embrace new tech more. That's all. So, Jordan Peterson, again, another guy. The saboteurs at YouTube have disabled autofill for my name and that of my daughter. These pathological shadow figures are messing with the very structure of our perceptions.
All right.
What we see in the virtual world, and
80K?
with the stability of
Yeah.
weights and measures themselves. What's up, YouTube?
I
This is
couldn't
not
continue my
acceptable.
household on that.
Take note, if you care to, Elon Musk, this is precisely the problem you are trying to solve.
That's why me and the wife.
To which I replied, Jordan,
No
you're worth
kids.
millions. Why don't you use new tech? I bet Rumble Video
Dual
would literally
income.
put you on the front page every time. And then Rumble replied and said,
And
yes,
I
we
work
would.
3 jobs. So.
I think it's fine to point it out. I think it's Jordan's fine to point it out, you know? But when you don't even do the bare minimum, I mean, this MFer has 170,000 followers on Rumble and he's never uploaded a single video. This time slot is hard for a lot of people to watch you. I know. I know. One day I may change it. Like if Rumble comes to me and says, your streams aren't big enough, I know I would be bigger if I streamed at 5 o'clock, like 6 Eastern, leading up into Tim's show. But then I give up my nights then. You know, no more Dart League, no more, you know, spending time with the wife, all this kind of stuff. So I really didn't want to do that. I know there are people during the day that have big crowds, so I'm going to just work, and build my audience in the time slot that works for me. Peterson has more followers than me with 0 videos. That's not true. I have 191,000. But again, so he said, oh, it doesn't, you know, my name doesn't come up in autofill, which is true. When you type in Jordan, it is nowhere to be found. Yeah, I agree, Gracie. I picked this slot because I wanted to have kids. You know, that's why I picked this time slot. And Dan Bongino gets 100,000 people at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I can do it too. Jordan Peterson does not show up in the recommended search. And what's interesting is if you go to Rumble, right? You go to Rumble, you start typing his name in, J-O-R. There he is, the very first result. So Rumble is giving him priority placement, and he doesn't even bother to upload videos here. That's why I don't have any time for it, you know? Gunnar was in chat and asked why he doesn't come back on Rumble, and he said,
He's actually been doing
he said
pretty
he
well as
would
far as
if
health
they
wise.
offered him another quote deal. So Rumble paid for content. They want to continue his deal now. Who are you talking about?
He's not wearing a John Deere hat. He wears almost a different hat every day. He's Wisconsin.
By the way, shout out to the king of
you should
Biltong. Good
relate
afternoon
with
from
him.
Anton's Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping for your Biltong with code THEQ, one word, on landedbiltong.com and antonusa.com. Was your Biltong delivered, Jeremy? Quantity you received good? Yes, perfect. And I had some before stream today, and this is all that's left. Just a little crumbs in a bowl. It's the perfect, healthy snack. So, you know, I just get, it's a soft spot for me. I think calling them out is good, okay? But, you know, at least make your damn videos available. Yeah, you can type in his whole name on YouTube and it doesn't even show up. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to call out the censorship. I think it's fair to call out that censorship. But Jordan Peterson is independently wealthy. Do you know what that do people know what that means? It means that Jordan Peterson will never have to work again. He's got somewhere between 50 and $100 million in the bank. He has no reason to fear putting his videos on Rumble. He also has no reason to be holding out for a fucking deal. Sorry. Pardon my French. Sorry. He has no reason to be holding out for a deal to get paid to upload his videos. You would be shocked at how many of my own friends, people who call themselves free speech warriors on YouTube, won't upload to Rumble because they want a deal. people that I call friends. Con Inc. cares about cashing checks. That's correct. I mean, there was nobody from the Daily Wire other than like Michael Knowles that was on Rumble forever. His daughter Michaela has a channel on Rumble. She posts weekly, pretty good. He pops up on her stuff. I don't know what to think about his daughter. Do we like her? I know she keeps having babies out of wedlock. That's all I know about her. It feels like she's a grifter. But I don't know. I'd have to talk to her. You know? I'd have to actually talk to her. Lord of the Recess didn't mean to send you on my rant. LOL, my bad. Oh. Ben is on here, yeah. But I remember when Matt Walsh called Rumble, Matt Walsh referred to being on Rumble as being banished to the hinterlands. That's what he said when YouTube demonetized him, and he was having a meltdown about it. By the way, Matt Walsh is also a multi-millionaire part of Con Inc. Peterson has an exclusivity deal with YouTube. Zero chance. Zero chance. Maybe not a grift, but definitely a Nepo. Okay. Well, I mean, you can't help who your parents are, you know. Maybe I'll try to have her on the show. See if she wants to come on. She's not bad. Okay. I'll see if she wants to come on. Oh, she's been married both times, so it's different men. Okay. Okay. Walsh has dad energy, including being out of touch with modern culture. Yeah. I'll try to get Mikhail on the show. Crowder called them out. Some of them created Rumble accounts after that. Yeah. Right. Glad to see you use Brave, Jeremy. Hell yeah. Yeah, Walsh is only recently on Rumble after insulting it. That's fine. Rumble will be here for people. Rumble will be here for people when they get banned off YouTube. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Now I want to talk about... I wanted to finish my... I started to talk about the... get her to bring her dad over. No, I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be those people that use her to get to her dad. I hate when people do that to me. They'll be like, oh, hey, can you get a message to Dankula? I'm like, no. Makabala says, money for nothing at Michaela P., daughter of a smart guy and sufferer of health problems. Okay. All right, well, we'll see. Okay. Here's why I think people are pissed off about Tucker potentially interviewing Putin, right? Just potentially interviewing Putin. They don't even know for a fact that he is, and we have former White House officials saying that he shouldn't be allowed back in the country. Like, dead set. Like, dead set. That people are saying, oh, he shouldn't be allowed back in the country if he interviews Putin. Here's the reality, and I want to preface this by saying, I don't think that Vladimir Putin is going to tell the truth in any interview. Okay, I don't believe that. But what I do know is that my own government isn't telling me the truth either. The reason the establishment, in my opinion, you guys let me know. You let me know if you think this is close, how close to target I am here. The reason the establishment doesn't want Vladimir Putin to have a platform or to be interviewed is because they know that the first step to ending a conflict is understanding your opponent, and they don't want to lose this money train. I'm not rooting for Putin, and I'm not wanting a Winsky for Zelensky, but I do want my tax dollars to stop going there. And I think the establishment is afraid that people are going to see, oh, he does have some, level of, humanity, which they don't want, or they, can you get a message to Huck for me? Yes, I can. They don't want you don't want him to be able to speak because they want to control 100% of the narrative. Just wait to see what the mainstream media does when and if Tucker publishes the interview on X. He should publish it on Rumble, but he will just...
Good morning, Dirty.
There's some weird backroom deal between the Daily Wire, Tucker, and Elon, and maybe even Alex that I don't know. I suspect that, Elon Musk told Alex Jones that if he lets him back on Twitter, he's got to stream his show there or something like that. I don't know. I have no evidence of that. But I think it's weird how all the Daily Wire guys are all like, oh, I put my show on X. I'm like, nobody watches hour-long podcasts on X, you weirdos. Anyway, I think that the left is very afraid of the American people seeing that maybe Vladimir Putin is frail. He's not some warmonger. He's some old dude. It's like MSNBC has been telling me for 8 years that Vladimir Putin engineered the 2016 election win of Donald Trump, even though there was literally zero evidence of that. So why on earth would I be afraid of listening? Why are they so afraid of me listening to something that Putin has to say directly? I guess Tucker on X is probably the only exception, but it still has to be a good guess for me. I watched the Russell Brand one, and I think I watched maybe one or two others, and that's it. But the left is freaking out because this is their money train. Got to keep money to, Adam Kinzinger. Is Tucker Carlson on Putin's payroll? How about Adam Kinzinger, American citizen, takes the Ukraine flag and Israel flag out of his bio? Loser. And look, I can listen to something that Putin has to say and disagree with it the same as I can as anybody else. There's nothing unique about Vladimir Putin saying something that's a lie versus MSNBC or Fox News lying to me. They're the exact same thing. So why can't I see that? It's because the establishment wants you to continue to fear Putin, to think he's... I mean, how old is the guy? A freaking 100? I'm supposed to think that he's perfectly engineering election interference? The media told you as a fact for 4 years that Vladimir Putin was the sole reason that Donald Trump won. That Vladimir Putin and Russia used election interference, and they got Donald Trump to beat Hillary Clinton. So... what did they do in 2020? How come they didn't make Donald Trump win in 2020? I thought they were super powerful, unstoppable hacking machines. Oh, and then the report comes out.
Oh no, Aldi, no.
Oh, it was actually total BS, and they had nothing to do. They didn't do anything to sway the election. And they wanted everyone just to forget about that. Rachel Madcow gets paid $30 million a year to go on TV with her lesbian haircut and tell Americans that Russia is the biggest thing we should fear, while people are getting carjacked at record rates. 100,000 people are dying from opioids a year. Crime's out of control. Violent crime's out of control in every major city. But yeah, I got to worry about a 100-year-old cancer-riddled guy named Putin a million miles away. That's what Rachel Madcow on MSNBC was saying. That's what CNN's been telling people for years.
Oh, Russian expats.
But I have to be afraid that Tucker
much more
Carlson
verbal.
might interview him? Get out of here. I don't believe that I won't automatically believe a single thing that Vladimir Putin says. But we have U.S. officials saying that we need to not allow Tucker Carlson back in the country. Because, I mean, what? Adam Kinzinger calling him a traitor. A traitor? To what? I say he should do it, so he's not betraying me. I'm no fan of Putin, but I also don't fear him. I don't fear Vladimir Putin, and I don't fear Russia. They're like number 500 on the list that should be important in America. How about all the Islamists that are pouring over our border? Sleeper cell agents. I'm more worried about them. Ricky A says, Texas will capitulate because they're all pussies. That includes the governor and all his citizens that have stood by and done nothing. We'll see. Maybe you're right. Yeah, Aldi's got caught. Aldi's something like 2,000 locations worldwide, roughly. Something like 2,000 locations. Yeah, when CNN interviewed Osama bin Laden, that was okay. They promised to break the law and discriminate against straight white people in their hiring. They're looking to hire a procurement specialist and will prioritize everyone except straight white people. They're also committed to following the principles of DEI. Here's their job listing. Jobs for Humanity is partnering with Aldi to build an inclusive and just employment ecosystem. Therefore, we prioritize individuals coming from the following communities. First, refugees. They prioritize refugees in their hiring process first. Then, neurodivergent. So their second priority is people with Down syndrome. Okay? Okay? Thirdly, single parents. Okay, women. Black women. Blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing. Then, black, Hispanic, Asian, military veterans. Finally, if you're a white military veteran, you might stand a chance. The elderly, and then LGBTQ, and then this is my favorite. Justice impacted individuals.
They already let the cat out of the bag on that, Morton.
A new leftist speak just dropped. Do you know how they call, making a woman have zipper tits? Like,
basically, when they do censuses, it's literally a head count. And the power in our government is determined by where the citizens are staying, or people are staying. So certain areas get more representation if they have more heads there.
So they call it gender affirming care. This justice impact individuals is the new criminals. Get ready to see it everywhere. By the way, I think criminals should be able to, if you do your time, you should be able to get a job. Okay? I think.
Thanks.
But they are from Germany, and that is where ESG, I believe, originated. I think. This position is open to candidates who reside in and have the legal right to work in the country. Whoa! How discriminatory. And of course, every one of their Twitter posts now getting ruthlessly ratioed. Which is great. You go to any Aldi post. What sucks is Aldi, they haven't posted actually since January 3rd. Let's see. Why do you hate Taylor Swift? Please remove homeless panhandlers from the Georgia Aldi. Their presence upsets my mom and her friends. They've been hanging out in the entry, not every day, but frequently. Ha! I love a Velvet Rope location in the Preston Valley, Arizona, please. Oh, they are responding to people. Here's February 2nd. I can no longer purchase from you. Your racism is a violation of federal law. Remember Bud Light. Few do. Goodbye, Aldi. I don't do business with racists. Stop being racist. I mean, what I would say is if a company won't hire people that look like you, then you should not give them your money. By the way, I say this to my black viewers too. Black viewers, if there is a company that discriminates against black people, I will stand by your side in their boycott. 110%. Like not, it's not a meme. If there is a company that is openly discriminating against hiring black people, I will stand with you to boycott them. Well, it looks like even woke leftist Hollywood weirdo burnouts have had enough of Joe Biden's policies, and he may have just crossed the line in his new plan. By the way, the new plan from woke Mayor Adams in New York is to give prepaid. Now, I want you to listen to me and leave a like on this if you think it's insane. People who enter this country illegally, right, and that are bused to New York, are set to get prepaid Visa cards at a value of $53 million.
Yeah, JJ.
Who could figure out why people are illegally crossing the border? Prepaid Visa cards. Each individual, a family of four, will receive $1,000 a month of your money. $1,000 a month of your money for illegally crossing the border. Instead of being sent back, instead of being sent to prison for breaking a crime, they will receive $1,000 of your money every single month while they're beating up cops. This is something they already do in Massachusetts, by the way. $1,000. Wouldn't it be nice? Leave a like on this video right now if you'd like to have another $1,000 a month. I know I would. I would absolutely love to have an extra $1,000 a month. It's a lot of money. I think the plan should be is that you sneak out of the country, then you sneak back in and then apply for the money. They can't afford a wall, though, guys. They can't afford a wall. They can't afford to stop the flood from coming over the border, but they can give them your money. And even the left has had enough of this. $50 Cent, and there's also Rappaport here in a second. 50 Cent slams New York City's plan to give $53 million in prepaid debit cards to migrants who use in bodegas as he demands Mayor Adams calls him and explains him how it will work and says maybe Trump is the answer. Trump is the only answer at this point. Love him or hate him, I don't know how you go to that ballot box in November and vote for anyone else. I guess there may be independent or third-party candidate you like, and you should vote for that. You shouldn't feel married to a two-party system. Well, I'll just say, how you vote for Biden at all?
I think Minnesota's beautiful.
Grab
Listen,
for 50
Michigan is
cents.
beautiful.
Slam New York City's plan to hand out
Stay out of
prepaid
those
cards
fucking
worth a combined $53 million
dirty-ass
to
cities.
migrants to use as bodegas, supermarkets, and delis. Mayor Eric Adams estimated the scheme will save the city $600,000 a month. What? That's like women shopping at Kohl's. That's woman math. That's your wife or girlfriend coming home from Kohl's and showing you how much money she quote-unquote saved. Sorry, ladies, but I had to do that one. Guys do it too, I'm sure. Honey, I had Kohl's cash. Look at all the money I saved. Damn you, Kohl's cash. Anyway. Mayor Eric Adams estimated the scheme will save $600K a month. The pilot program is being rolled out at the Roosevelt Hotel, by the way, where they're also living for free on your money. There are people that are living on fixed incomes in this nation, American citizens that don't get $1,000 a month. A family of four will get a card loaded with $1,000 a month of your money. 50 Cent went to Instagram to say, WTF, Mayor Adams, call my phone, he wrote. I don't understand how this works. Somebody explain this. I'm stuck. Maybe Trump is the answer. He comes as the artist who was born in New York City, question why migrants are being handed out free health care.
I think
I don't understand this. This is going to cost $2.6 billion for taxpayers, he said on January 3rd. They don't even give veterans health insurance.
Garbage. That's why
Call
I really
my
like
phone now. Help me understand this stuff. WTF.
It's pretty enlightening about the degradation of
Migrants must sign a
urban
piece
areas.
of paper, though, guys, saying that they're only going to use the cards for baby supplies and food. How they're going to police that? Don't know. Cards are refilled every 28 days. That's not even every month. That's more than once a month. And what's hilarious is it's going to save the city this money. They're paying $11 to feed. You know what would save the money? You know what's wild? I know this is crazy. But deporting them. Not allowing them in the country in the first place illegally. Now, I don't know what 50 Cent's Instagram is like. If he has a lot of, I don't know, a lot of followers. I don't know. You know, what they might agree, if they agree with this or not. Generally, as you get older, you know, you get, how do I say, more, you get a little more conservative. I don't see where, if he shared it as a reel or what the case is, but it may just be a comment he wrote. This just looks like a comment he wrote. But that's not even it. You have, okay, 50 Cent here again, story about him, but 50 Cent, like many rappers, has long nursed an affinity for Trump and endorsed him in 2020 presidential election, citing a fear of tax increases. Well, that fear has come true. How about Michael Rappaport? Michael Rappaport now in the second video. Now, Michael Rappaport is a, I don't know, people call him a far leftist. I don't know if he's a far, I mean, is Michael Rappaport far left? I don't know. He's an unhinged liberal. I know that. But I don't think all liberals are like, I don't think all liberals are unhinged leftists. I talk about like, I don't like leftists. I don't have a problem with liberals. Far left comic Michael Rappaport says voting for Trump is on the table after seeing illegals beat up New York City cops. Comedian and staunch critic of former President Trump, Michael Rappaport, unleashed a scathing rant against New York City's immigration problems and President Biden's priorities this week, suggesting that if Biden doesn't deal with the problem here at home, voting for Trump is, quote, on the table. Now, here's the thing. You know that the small amount of pressure that's been put on liberal cities from Texas busing migrants there, more, double it, triple it, quadruple it. Now, I've got viewers right now that work for DoorDash and say that they deliver to these migrants when they're ordering steaks and expensive food and groceries while going to the mall and spending hundreds on brand names for clothes, all using the exact same Visa card or Envy. They're given, they're people, you know, I don't know if they're given one when they cross the border, but then they're going to get another one, so they're going to have 2 debit cards. Rappaport shared a video to X railing in the recent news story about illegal immigrants in New York beating up cops and then being released the same day after the altercation. Furious at the idea, the Biden administration has been tougher on foreign issues than domestic issues like a record migrant surge. Rappaport opened up the clip by slamming his fist on the table, declaring, "This is why I say voting for Donald Trump is on the table. Voting for Donald Trump is on the table." The other day, 6 illegal aliens jumped a New York City cop, NYPD's finest. They jumped a city cop in Times Square and they were arrested and released without bail. Rappaport appeared furious with the news and commented on recent footage showing one of the migrants flipping off a news camera while leaving New York City courtroom, released without bail. Came out of the courtroom on some Tupac, raising the middle finger with Detroit Red Wings jersey on. Let me tell you something, what the F is this world coming to?
Well, it
You
wasn't
could be
Red
from
Wings, it was
another
a fucking,
country, beat up a cop in
Lakers
New York
jersey.
City, and walk out with
Look
no
at my
effing
thumbnail.
bail. What the F is the world coming to? Well, I think this is a direct result of kind of the TDS liberal being tricked into becoming a far leftist. This is what the far left wants. They want us to be a third world country. I can tell you this right now, and thank goodness I know I'm very lucky.
Gregory, are you still here?
I will never go to Baltimore.
YouTube is so good. YouTube is so good. They just removed a video from
And I'm sure, and I'm here
August 25th of 2022
just like there are nice parts of,
for medical misinformation.
I'll go to the third ward in Milwaukee. East side,
That's why I stream on Rumble.
go hang out on the east side. Now that's more sketchy. I won't go to Chicago willingly. I don't want to get stabbed. I'm sorry, but I don't. I'm sure that there's a nice part of Seattle. I'm sure there's some good parts of Baltimore. I'm sure there's some good parts of Chicago, good parts of Detroit. But why even risk it? The cops won't save you. They can't. They've been defunded. Towards the end of the tirade, Rappaport stated, "Maybe my city is not the greatest city on earth anymore. If you could beat up cops, if you can beat up cops in the greatest city in the world and be released without bail, are we the greatest city on earth? Cadaver Joe Biden, we see you." Now, I don't think there's any chance that Rappaport actually votes for Trump. But this is where moderate liberals are now. They have to feel this way. I know I have like moderate liberals in my audience, right? I mean, speaking to you, I gotta think there's no way you're thinking of voting for Joe Biden again. Now, that doesn't mean you're gonna go vote for Trump. You know, I'm sure that doesn't mean you're gonna vote for Trump, but I highly doubt people are gonna be as excited to go vote for Joe Biden again. Like, I don't mean to disparage the people of these cities. There are good people in these cities, and I feel bad for them because many of them are trapped. Imagine a world, like, I could not even imagine, like, you see, remember how many years ago was that? Where that moron Seth Rogen basically admonished that other weirdo, the guy that looks like a caveman on YouTube, for complaining that his car got broken into. Like, imagine a world where I have to park and open all 4 doors in the rear trunk of my car so it doesn't get broken into. And people have accepted that garbage there. People have accepted that. You go to San Francisco, you drive downtown, every car door is wide open and the back of their trunk's wide open because people will get robbed. And they've accepted it. I couldn't even imagine living like that. And I bet you those people didn't either 10 years ago. I mean, it is insane to me what happened to the... I mean, it doesn't even have to be about loving Trump. It just has to be about, I mean, this can't continue. This can't continue.
This is why when I say voting for pig Donald Trump is on the table, voting for pig Donald Trump is on the table. The other day in New York City, 6 illegal aliens jumped a New York City cop, NYPD's finest. They jumped a New York City cop.
One of the few things I'm happy about.
And were arrested and released without bail. I know it's a city thing. I know it's a state thing. I know all that. I know all that. I know all that. Okay? Stay with me. Released without bail. Came out of the courtroom on some Tupac raising the middle finger with the Detroit Red Wings jersey. Let me tell you something. What the is the world coming to? If you could be from another country, beat up a cop in New York City, and walk out with no bail, what the is the world coming to? What the is the world coming to? I know, Mayor Adams, you're from Brownsville, Brooklyn. I know this. Like, what the have I gotten myself into? Stay with me. On the same day that that happens, Cadaver Joe Biden issues an executive order about 4 quote-unquote settlers in Judea, Samaria, aka the West Bank. Some troublemakers, 3 of the 4 have already been arrested. You issue an executive order about 4 troublemaking ups who've already been arrested in Judea, Samaria, while there's a war going on, while there's 100+ hostages still being held in Gaza. You're talking about that, but you got nothing to say about beating up cops in New York City, the greatest city on earth. Maybe it's not. Maybe my city is not the greatest city on earth anymore. If you could beat up cops, in the quote-unquote greatest city in the world and be released without bail, are we the greatest city on earth? Cadaver Joe Biden, we see you. We see you. Don't worry about those in Israel. Bibi got them. Israel will take care of them. Worry about cops getting beat up in Times Square and walking out with no bail like the Tupac Shakur. Worry about that shit. This is why voting for pig Donald Trump is still on the table.
He voted for it. He voted for it. He voted for it. He voted for it. I don't know what else to tell you. I can tell you this. When you want to talk about the best cities in the world, the best cities in this and that, I guarantee you, if I was making that list, not a single one of them would have more than 5,000 residents or 10,000 residents. I mean, this whole lie about New York City being some great city, bullshit. The best city in America is one where I don't have to lock my doors, my friends. The best city in America is where people help each other and they don't take their cell phones out and film you when you're getting beaten by a homeless drug addict. All right? The best city in the world has probably less than 10,000 people. And probably the top 1,000 cities in the world are not a metropolis.
Well, they are illegals. That were I think that's what he's saying is they're...
There's just I mean, that is just the reality.
And instead of them hanging around to deal with the situation afterward, they were literally shipped.
There is no scenario where a city like Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Miami, Dallas, Houston, there is no scenario Where any city that big is the best at literally anything. Period. Maybe 50,000, I'll say. 50,000 is still a smaller city. 50,000 is still smaller. Small-ish. I've lived in small cities. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky and the surrounding area is massive. Most people that live in Louisville, consider it basically more than just the city proper. It's like 2 million people in the area around it.
Metro area. It's called a metro area. It's amazing how many people I have to tell that
Yeah,
to.
everyone can self-identify as a refugee, Jack. Yeah, good idea. I lived in Louisville. I've lived in, Milwaukee area, close to it. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in Madison, Janesville. They're all shitholes. They're all dirty, unsafe shitholes.
Yep.
I'm happy to wait 2 extra days for my Amazon package to not live in them.
All right, I gotta order a new email for somebody.
Probably all the best cities are in Japan too. Yeah. Remember that video of like someone left their backpack or laptop on a park bench in Japan? It was still there the next day because no one steals from there. You want 100 to 150K, that'll get you the diversity in bars and restaurants that you want, and it'll still be safe. It's even better if there are no other big cities within 200 miles. Yeah, I agree. I do agree that you need a little bigger so you don't have to eat at Applebee's. If you need a little bigger city, so that you have good food and good entertainment options. That part I'll agree with. I live in South Louisville and it's getting worse every year. I'm gonna move soon. Yeah, I lived in Valley Station. So I lived in Valley Station, brand new apartment building. Residents were stealing from each other in the parking lot. And people were breaking into everyone else's cars in our own parking lot. In an apartment building that was like 2 G's a month. And Valley Station is on the edge of the core. Like you drive up that road, drive up Dixie or whatever for like 10 minutes and you're in the hood. So it wasn't exactly in the hood, but it was hood adjacent. Now you go over to like some of the upper crusty parts of Louisville where stuff's expensive and stuff's a little like, what was that part of town called? Where they say they're always like, keep Louisville weird. And they had that part of the Heights or something like that. That was nice. You want to go over there? You want to drive 45 minutes to go to a place where you can get scallops and a nice craft beverage without getting stabbed? But, I mean, might as well be in another city. It's on the other side. It's on the other side of a town. It takes 45 minutes to get there. It's not even the same thing. Where you live is like the 15 minutes around you. No, the Highlands it was called, I think. The Highlands. Jeremy got street cred. Nah, dog. My post office was like as close to the hood as I wanted to go, and it was bad. The post office in Valley Station. Yeah, Highlands. Yeah. I like the Highlands. There were like game stores there. The houses were all cool. It's like Milwaukee's nicer part of Wauwatosa, you know. Lexington's so much better than Louisville. I've never been there. That's quite a drive, isn't it? Isn't Lexington like a couple-hour drive? I mean, my biggest thing from living in a small town to like going to these big cities, the number one thing I notice is that they're dirty. Everything is dirty. The sidewalks are dirty. The windows are dirty. There's garbage in the streets. There's garbage cans overflowing on the ground. Every big city I've ever been in is like this. They're all dirty. And that comes from no pride. No pride in your city. No pride in where you live. No pride in your neighborhood. No pride in your neighbors. They're all dirty and disgusting. Dirty. I mean, you go to Walmart even. I go to Walmart in Germantown, okay? Now, these are going to be some inconvenient truths, but if you know, you know. If you go to a Walmart that is close to a big city, you know what I'm talking about. I go to Germantown, Wisconsin Walmart, which is on the bus line from Milwaukee, and it is an absolute unmitigated shithole. Dirty diapers on the ground, people just hanging out, trying to holler, harassing women there, stealing, you know, just an absolute shithole. I go 10 minutes north.
My son got beat
to
up
the
bad
Walmart in
Detroit.
West Bend, which is 15
He had a
years, 10
backpack
years
on.
older.
They wanted
10
whatever
years
was in
older
it.
than the Germantown location, and it looks brand
Pistol whip.
new inside. It's well
'Cause
lit.
he gave some resistance.
The
He got
floors are
pistol whipped.
clean.
Lucky
Nobody's
to be alive.
pissing on the floor. There's no dirty diapers on the floor. That's a suburb. This is what I see with my eyes. This is not me making a guess and being,
No, there's some fucking nasty
bigoted or
parts of
racist.
Wisconsin.
This is the truth.
Usually the big cities.
I don't even let my wife go to Germantown Walmart anymore because I don't think it's safe. I make her drive 30 minutes out of the way to a different location.
No ice cream cones.
A big part of that, as Kai points out, is when you employ people that do not live or work in your community. It goes to hell real fast. When they don't have to worry about seeing you after hours or seeing you on the block or seeing you at the bar, they don't give a shit about their job. It's sad. It's like when I tell people like that go to that Germantown Walmart, I'm like, did you know that that's 10 years older than the one they built in West Bend? Like the West Bend one, you walk in, it's like brand new. Brand new. Walgreens is another shithole. Floors are always dirty. People are coughing all over you. The people that work in the pharmacy are the worst people on the planet. They hate their jobs. Go ahead and pull up any Walgreens review. Pick your local Walgreens and look at the reviews. I bet you they're rated less than a 2. That's why I don't like living by the city, because there's just too many people that don't give a shit. Throw their McDonald's bag out the window of their car while they're driving. Walmart morning crowd is completely different. That's true. I mean, source, I worked there. Yeah, I worked at Walmart for 3 years. It's not like everyone that goes into Walmart's a piece of garbage. But I mean, when you're on the bus line and you're piping in 500 people a day who don't live in your community, okay, who are hanging out there because they have air conditioning, that's what you get. That's what you get.
Yeah, no sandals.
That may make people uncomfortable. That may make people feel uncomfortable or feel like, but you know, I challenge you to go to a Walmart in a big city that isn't a complete dung. CVS, same thing. CVS pharmacy's a shithole. Walgreens, shithole. Everybody's going to get their prescriptions from Amazon in 2 years. Mark my words. By the way, did you know you can get your prescriptions from Amazon? It takes 5 minutes to set up. That's all it takes. I get my prescriptions in the mail from Amazon. Never have to see anybody, never have to talk to anybody, don't have any sick people coughing on me. Don't have to deal with some employee who hates their job. It's great. Open my door, there's my pills. And they'll look back and they'll say, how did this all happen? They'll say, how did this happen? Yeah. Does the grocery store have a lock on the bathroom? If they do, it's a shithole. You know why there's a lock on the bathroom? It's because people are shooting up heroin in there. That's why there's a lock on the bathroom. Or they have an enormous problem with theft.
Hey, George.
Is that making Bezos more money? No. I mean, there are other... What's the other big mail-in prescription? I used to use Home RX. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just... I mean, there are other options. There are other options for getting your prescriptions in the mail. So you don't have to use Amazon. You know what I mean? Check this out. Fucking... To be fair, Amazon employees hate their job too. That's true, but I don't have to talk to them. Jack, I'm a trucker, and while in Chicago, I watch countless people just throw fast food bags and stuff out their car windows. I couldn't care less. Dude, that is my pet peeve. If it wasn't illegal, I would ram those people off the road. If it wasn't illegal, I would ram them off the roads. I see it happen all the time. Full fucking bag of McDonald's, just throw it out their window at a stop sign. It's like, dude, first of all, every drive-through you go through, there's a trash can right there. St. Louis has high murder rates, trash everywhere, and literal radioactive landfill. Yeah, yeah. The problem is anybody who gets enough money will leave the city. Anybody who gives a crap about the city leaves it. That's what happens. The fine for littering should be $1,000. It should be as much as a DWI. It should be $750 for littering. It is literally 100% preventable, 100% premeditated. If you throw your soda can out your window of your car, $1,000 ticket. I don't care. Nobody forced you to do that. If you wreck your car crashing in a litter box, is that a write-off? Yeah. Here we go. Well, I don't know if you're aware of multi-millionaire Twitch fake communist socialist Hassan Piker. Well, it turns out he grew up extremely rich. His father was the vice president of a company worth billions of dollars. He doesn't want you to know that, though. He's a trust fund baby, while preaching communism to 14-year-old kids who pay him $5 a month. It's an incredible story that is taking the internet by storm right now. All after he decided he was really upset that his communist fans that he's been grooming into communism over the past, or socialism for the past few years, got mad at him for living in a multi-million-dollar mansion. Now, I don't have any problem with somebody making money. But I have a problem with phonies. I have a problem with people like Hassan Piker and Carlos Maza. Remember Carlos Maza? Every single time you see one of these prominent proponents of communism and socialism, they grew up rich. If you look back to even Karl Marx's upbringing, things like that, these people grew up rich. Che Guevara grew up rich. Carlos Maza, right? Remember, he was a big eat the rich guy until he was getting Crowder demonetized and things like that for his shirt that said communism.
Tourist guides.
Whatever's, you know. Turned out his mom and dad were both multimillionaires. Taylor Lorenz, although she's not a vocal proponent of socialism, another good example of somebody who's lording over you, pretending to be one of you. Well, this guy, Hassan Piker, who earns millions a year telling 14-year-olds that socialism good, Israel bad, as being in a little bit of trouble with his viewers. The leading streamers on Twitch have long been pulling in millions of viewers and thousands of subscribers each month, with streaming contracts reportedly being around $100 million, as well as major sponsorships and content monetization being key. Many creators have become incredibly wealthy off the back of their content. Over the years, the opportunities have only risen for creators broadcasting live as streaming has continued more mainstream. One Twitch streamer who has remained atop is Hassan Piker. You might know him as Hamas Piker. Most people know him as that. Despite this, Hamas was quickly hit with a wave of backlash by his viewers across social media after claiming that he earns just as much as a doctor. This guy earns millions of dollars a year. That's not what an average doctor makes. That might be what the president of a hospital makes. Hassan addressed comments towards his house during a stream on February 2nd. Who gives an ish about the house? Who effing cares? These guys are so stupid. I make, like, a 10-year doctor or like a law firm partner money, okay? Which is a lot for the average Joe. It is a lot. But these MFers think I'm Jeff Bezos because they are so stupid. That's it. They're stupid. Hassan's father was the vice president of a Fortune 500 company called Sabanchi Holdings with a revenue of $152 billion. Hassan Piker is a trust fund baby. And what's great is he's so out of touch. He's so completely bought into his own grift that he doesn't see that Hassan Piker is far closer to Jeff Bezos than any one of his own viewers. Many flooded to slam the streamer after one viewer posted the clip to Reddit. One responded, "Really weird he would say this because he's so far from the truth. Like, who are you fooling with that lie?" Much of the criticism revolves around his comparison that he makes the same amount of money as doctors. Don't know WTF doctors Hassan knows, but as far as I'm aware, there aren't very many doctors making more than $200,000 a month. True. A user added, "At best, private practice plastic surgeon in LA who is fully established with people like Jennifer Aniston as patients. So a extremely small group. And even that doctor has a F-ton more overhead, so still doubtful."
Yep. That's it, George.
Some surge to his defense, though. These people are my favorite. "Is a man not entitled to a $3 million house? Come on." That wasn't really a defense. That was being, making fun of his champagne socialism. Another claim, "He's probably raised more money for charity than everyone in his entire sub combined. And of course, it's not even a mansion. But that is lost on people who clearly wish it was. Yeah, $3 million house is tiny." Now, yes, it is in a gated community in LA in the Hollywood Hills, a place where he chooses to live. At the time of writing, Hassan has not responded to further regarding the situation that has quickly become a hot topic in the Twitch community. Look,
Nice, Chopper.
what's interesting to me is that people
That's funny.
like to gaslight and pretend like it's just, oh, is he not allowed to make money? No, that's not it. It's not that he's not allowed to make money. It's that he is the rich in that he wishes to be taxing. I tweeted, Twitch fake communist Hassan Piker is under fire. If it's been revealed that his father was a CEO, it's technically vice president of a company that had revenue of 152 billion or something like that. Look up Sabanachi Holdings, LOL. He's also deeply involved in the government there, and he's lobbied European Union, all this stuff like that. Not surprising, most of these commies have had everything handed to them. Carlos Maz's stepdad was revealed to be a billionaire by the Post. Communism is the ideology of the elites. And you can look at his father, Mehmet Piker, who is extremely affluent. That's put together by this individual's XLP's video. Just to play a little, shout out to XLP. I'm going to give him a subscribe. Check out his channel.
Mehmet B. Piker, who is a public figure, so I'm not doxing anybody, was the vice president of Sabancı Holding, a Fortune 500 company at the time. He also represented Turkey as a delegate in the European Union. For Hassan to act like this wouldn't even make him upper middle class in America, when his father was literally one of the most powerful businessmen on the planet, is
that it was company number 240 in the Fortune 500.
just a straight up lie, which he does a lot of in this interview. Hassan does mention that his father was the right-hand man in a holding group.
But he was successful. I mean, he was like lobbying the Turkish government. He was like
super
the right-hand
rich
man in a holding group. You know what I mean? He was like, he had some pretty serious jobs.
But to pretend that his family's wealth was comparable to your average middle-class American is laughable. Hassan goes on to claim that his father lost everything futures trading after he had retired and Hassan went off to college.
Even if that were true, it doesn't matter, because he still grew up super rich.
Operation upon his arrival in 2013.
You guys probably know this, but if you don't, my uncle has a YouTube channel called The Young Turks.
He also refers to the Young Turks as a small operation of just 26 employees.
It was like a 26-person shop. It was like a tiny operation.
Tiny.
Not that big. Not
26
that
employees,
behemoth
tiny.
or anything.
In 2013, the Young Turks had over 1 million subscribers, received over 1 billion views, landed a deal with Roku, brought in over $3 million, not including the $400K raised in an Indiegogo campaign, and would receive a $4 million investment from a private equity firm less than a year later. Not
I mean, Hassan Piker grew up extremely rich. He wants you to think that he's one of us, one of you,
Morton.
but he's not. And he's convinced his 12-year-old viewers, he's convinced his 12-year-old viewers that he's just like them, even though he wears $1,000, $1,500 shirts and buys, $1,000 shoes and has his $200,000 electric Porsche. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with making money, which is the only rebuttal his brain-dead viewers have. Okay, I'm trying to save you guys. Hassan viewers that are coming to this video and angrily disliking it. I'm trying to save you. If you really believe in socialism, then this guy ain't it. This guy is a capitalist with a capital C. He is extremely rich, and no amount of fundraisers where he gets you to donate more of your money will offset that. People like to say there's only 2 rebuttals for this. oh, yeah, but Hassan has donated. No, he has run fundraisers where his viewers donate the lion's share. And he has made some small donations of his own. Okay? Hassan, and no amount of charity undoes the fact that he is perhaps the best capitalist known to man, one that convinces communists that he's one of them. And then they'll say, well, I mean, isn't he allowed? Is a man not allowed the fruits of his labor? Sure, that's fine, but stop pretending you're a socialist. You're not a socialist. You grew up rich, super rich, top 1% of the world. You're still super rich. You've never wanted for food. You've never not had money. You've been living in a lap of luxury your entire life. You're a Nepo baby. And that's exactly all you'll ever be. Yeah, you'll make more money than me. You'll have lots of money, and that's cool. You can bring on eccentric musicians on your live stream. That's cool. But you are, my friend, a true grifter. An actual grifter. You don't believe in socialism. You believe in capitalism. If you were a socialist, why do you even allow people to sub for $5 a month to you? You would make more than enough money if you didn't take 14-year-olds $5 a month. Right? You just have to leave donations on too, right? You just have to do ad reads for capitalist companies. You just have to buy from capitalist corporations. So once a year you make a donation to Palestine and I'm supposed to think that you're not a grifter? I mean, look, I look up to Hassan. He has an incredible grift. People call me a grifter. I'm like, what are you talking about? This guy has hundreds of thousands of 15-year-old morons convinced that he's Che Guevara or that he's Karl Marx. This guy is not a socialist. He's an actor. And they keep giving him their money anyway. They don't bother to do a simple Google search and figure out that this guy doesn't walk the walk. He only says what he has to say to make the money, which is, of course, not surprising. There's just no saving people like Hassan or viewers of Hassan. There's no saving them. There's just nothing to be saved. We love landlords.
What's going on? It's like a dog, you know what I mean? Like a puppy. When puppy is like biting, you're supposed to move away. You know what I mean? That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. What's going on? How you guys doing? We love landlords. We're all against unions. We're here to protest against the landlords and the unions. We love them. Can we do like a quick shake on the hand? We love landlords. Look.
Landlords. And one of the best. Make a video bounty, film them litter, capture the license plate, you get $500. Yeah, I agree.
What's going on? How you guys doing? We love landlords. We're here to protest against the landlords and the unions. We love them. We love landlords. We love landlords. We love them a lot. We're all against unions. They're not fair to the corporate companies. The more you do that, and the more you end up hurting. You end up hurting. The more you end up hurting capital. You end up hurting the capital. The quicker the strike will end. The strike will end. Landlords.
Landlords. Landlords. Landlords.
We love landlords. We love them. We love landlords. You want to move away a little bit? No, we love landlords. What's going on?
Oh my God, one of the best ever. What they are saying makes no sense. Well, let me add some context. They were at a writers' strike rally when the Hollywood writers were on strike. And one of the thing one of the things communists or socialists will rail against are landlords. They don't think anyone should be able to own a property and rent it out. What's their solution? Don't know. So they'll often say, like, they have those shirts that, like, kill your landlord or this, that, or the other thing. I'm getting pretty good at that. I'm getting the timing down. The rent is too damn low. Yeah, that would. Yeah, I've got another story for you guys too. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, by the way, if you're a first timer today, make sure you leave a like on the video if you can, and then also, if you haven't yet, if this button that says follow is green and you haven't followed, give the channel a follow. I stream every single day from 1 to 3 Eastern, so I'm kind of wrapping up here in a little bit. But I would love to see you tune in every day. I cover basically all the breaking news, everything that's going on. I also interact with chat probably more than anyone else on this platform. Now, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I mean that in a truthful way. I do. And so if you haven't yet followed me, I'm trying to get to 200,000 followers, so we're getting close. I think we're just under 192,000. So if you can, give it a follow. Also, my coffee company, which isn't one of those crappy dropship coffee companies out there, we sell gift boxes for most holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and we have our Valentine's Day gift box. We have limited quantities available. Promo code CUPID10 will save you 10%. You can use our pre-built one, which is our real cacao, rich caramel hot cocoa. Make that with milk, raspberry yogurt pretzels, chocolate-covered espresso beans, and a bag of our delicious medium roast ground coffee. Or, if you don't like that, you can completely build your own from the ground up. If you don't like coffee, whatever the case is, you can use our custom gift box builder and just add whatever items you want. Coffee, tea, cocoa, premium. You want to build it all with candy, you can build the whole thing with candy if you want. And you're supporting me directly. And there's put the link in the chat, Coffee Brand Coffee /pages/gift boxes. The stream is so bad I couldn't see the Alex Jones. Please tell me you hit him with a slide whistle at some point. The stream was so bad, nobody else was complaining about it. Now, the UFC is home to some of perhaps the most based individuals on the planet. We've seen many of the examples of that, whether it's Sean Strickland, who's come out and, spoke against diversity, equity, and inclusion, all this kind of stuff. Or it's Colby Covington, who is always like vocally supporting Trump, for example. Or in this case, a Portuguese fighter by the name, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Renato Moicano, probably mispronouncing, I apologize, but he had issued perhaps one of the most based victory speeches that I've seen to date. This is the type of immigrant I want. This is the type of immigrant I want in America. I want his papers fast-tracked. UFC fighter, says he loves America, wants to become a citizen, serve as a police officer, and get the bad guys. People are going crazy. I want those MFers to fix it right now. You see a lot of people. See, that's the type of legal immigrant America wants. He's excited to be an American and would pick a job as police to get rid of bad guys. That's enough for me. He's a citizen now. I'd happily trade 10 Antifa commies out for one of him. It's based. UFC fighter. I'm going to try to pronounce it one last time. I think it is Renato Moicano. Gave a truly wild interview Saturday about wanting to join a SWAT team to end the bad guys. By the way, one thing.
Oh, you talk about
I think
the Valentine's Day box.
Is based,
it's good coffee, though.
And he should do that. But also think about the good guys.
Get a discount with
Valentine's Day. At Coffee Brand Coffee, we have our limited quantity Valentine's Day gift box. Valentine's Day is just 9 days away, so you only have like 2 days probably to order it. It comes with our medium roast coffee, chocolate covered espresso beans, our raspberry yogurt pretzels, which everyone loves, and our rich caramel real cacao hot cocoa. If you don't like that, you can also use our custom.
I think the term free speech is, people always attack me like, oh, you say you're for free speech, but you blah, blah, blah. I never say I'm for free speech. I hate that term. I think it is used interchangeably for several different concepts, some of which I am 100% for, some of which I am completely against. If you and I were going to have a conversation about Apple and you're talking about something that grows on trees and I'm talking about laptops, we're using the same word, but we're going to be talking past each other.
Freedom of speech.
Fundamental rights.
Freedom of conscience.
Academic freedom.
Freedom of press.
And the right to listen.
You're listening to So to Speak, the free speech podcast, brought to you by FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. Hello, and welcome back to So to Speak, the free speech podcast, where every other week we take an uncensored look at the world of free expression. I am, as always, your host, Nico Perino. Today's episode looks at free speech from the perspective of one anarchist. I say one anarchist because our guest today, Michael.
Okay, Martin, I let you expound some things, but where the fuck would you get dinner for two and booze for $59? Where? Oh, and dessert? Where? Because me and the wife went out. All I had was wings. She had a hamburger or a chicken sandwich. We did each have 2 beers. We didn't have dessert. And this was not a fancy place. This place called the Mason Jar. Guess how much? $150. So, I don't know where you would get dinner for two for $59. Yeah, okay, you're in Japan. Okay. Yeah, there was, I say 150. It was $125. $25 tip. Need a rant.
Malice, who describes himself as an anarchist without adjectives, freely admits that many anarchists would disagree with some or much of what he... Michael is the author of several books, including Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il, The New Right, A Journey to the Fringe of American Politics, The Anarchist Handbook, and most recently, The White Pill, A Tale of Good and Evil. Michael also hosts the podcast You're Welcome and was the subject of the 2006 graphic novel Ego and Hubris. Now, before we begin today, I wanted to share a few short reflections on this episode. This was one of those conversations that, after it was done, I just couldn't stop thinking about. This is probably the first time I've had a self-described anarchist on the show. Much of our dialogue on the show and in society at large is about how free speech works in relationship to the state. What are or should be the bounds of the First Amendment, for example. But in an anarchist society, the state doesn't exist. And free speech doesn't really exist. Free association is the core right, and people are free to police their private associations, including their members' speech, as they wish. It's elegant in its simplicity, but begs the question whether there are any normative judgments people should make of these associations. Michael and I get into these questions a little bit, but since I rarely confront anarchist arguments against free speech, I was admittedly more unprepared to confront his arguments than I would have liked. This episode is a good representation of John Stuart Mill's truism that both teachers and learners go to sleep at their post as soon as there is no enemy in the field. I also generally wasn't on top of my game, as evidenced by the fact that when I was recording the placeholder introduction for this episode, I mindlessly read the title of Michael's first book as the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong II, rather than Kim Jong-il, to which Michael appropriately ribbed me. The first time I came across Michael's work, in fact, was when he wrote Dear Reader, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong II, which...
Kim Jong-il.
Kim Jong-il.
Are you serious?
This was extra embarrassing given that I was first introduced to Michael's work at a 2014 event at Cato about the very book that I mispronounced. Now, Michael defines anarchism as the phrase, "you do not speak for me," with everything else simply being application. Perhaps my biggest regret from this conversation was that I didn't do more to press Michael on the application of his principles to specific individual cases. For example, I wish I had more concrete case studies at hand to dig deeper into the application of his views to things like cancel culture, the rights of people to join extremist groups such as the Klan, or to his contrarian take that nobody had their free speech rights violated during the McCarthy era. I probably should have had more concrete examples at the ready because I'm actually reading Robert Caro's series on Lyndon Baines Johnson right now and just finished the chapters about Leland Olds, who was a man who was driven out of government by Johnson after 2 decades of widely credited, successful service because Olds' earlier pre-government work involved pro-labor writings, which were used by politicians, including Lyndon Johnson, to cast him as a communist. Caro alleges that the real reason Johnson went after Olds was because Johnson's political backers saw Olds as an impediment to their charging higher prices for energy. Now, it's of course important to acknowledge that political appointees serve at the whims of the president and Congress, and no free speech rights were violated in Olds' case, but I would have loved to have dug deeper into whether there's any principle at stake when the government publicly smears people without adequate due process and makes them functionally unemployable thereafter, as was the case with Olds. I actually wish I had included Fire President CEO Greg Lukianoff in this conversation. Like Michael, he views the Red Scare periods with a nuance that is often not found in most popular discussions of those times. Greg readily acknowledges that there were actual Soviet spies in government, for example, but I don't think he would dismiss the free speech concerns altogether. Also, unlike Michael, Greg believes cancel culture is real, that it poses a threat to free speech. He sees it as representing a unique period in American history, and he's obviously very critical of it. Greg's new book, The Canceling of the American Mind, which we've discussed on this show before, is devoted to making all of those very arguments. In short, it would have been fun to hear Greg and Michael unpack these two subjects. They also both have family histories dealing with Soviet oppression. Perhaps we can get them both on the show at a future date if Michael's willing to come back. Now, despite these misgivings about my contributions, my personal contributions to this conversation, I did really enjoy talking to Michael. He has a commanding knowledge of history, he is smart, he is funny, and importantly, he lends a perspective to these issues that aren't often shared in free speech conversations. And for that, his voice on these issues is even more important and makes all of us smarter. Now, I'll get myself out of the way and get on to the conversation. Here is Michael Malice. You describe yourself as an anarchist without adjectives. I think that was a phrase you used on the Rubin Report.
Correct.
What does it mean to be an anarchist without adjectives?
Well, you know, the black flag of anarchism comes in many colors, and you've got the original anarchists who are communists. You have contemporary anarcho-capitalists who the ANCOMs don't regard as anarchists at all. And I don't swear fealty to any one of these schools. I think they all bring something very useful to the table. And I'm not going to, say one group are the real anarchists and the other group are not. And they both also have their flaws as well.
What would you say kind of is the Cliff Notes version of the definition of anarchism as you see it?
The definition of anarchism, as I see it, is simply the phrase, "You do not speak for me," and everything else is simply application.
Who are like the most prominent anarchists today, would you say? Like if you're talking to just someone who has a kind of passing interest in politics, who might they think of as?
So the
or know
list
of?
is Noam Chomsky's number 1, Russell Brand is number 2, and I'm number 3. Like that's the list. It's not a very big or impressive list.
So the purpose of today's conversation is to talk about free speech.
Russell Brand, really?
Kind of in a world where you don't have a government, right? In an anarchist system. It's not something that we've ever considered on this podcast before. How do you view free speech in an anarchist system? Does it exist? Like,
So, yeah,
if you don't have like a state to reference?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour because I'm a big fan of what FIRE does, and I'm going to show how free speech is corralled. So Noam Chomsky, who I just mentioned a second ago, has this superb quote, and I want to get it exactly right. Here it is. And he says, "The smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum." I had a comedian podcaster, Jimmy Dore, on my show, and he talks about if you're watching a panel on like CNN, and I can curse, right? The range of opinion will go from should we bomb the shit out of Syria to should we bomb the living shit out of Syria. The View, which is the Karen mothership, does this superbly well. You've got 4 old Stalinists, and then you have a Republican who thinks Trump is the devil, and that is your range of political opinion on The View. As my buddy Kurt Mexiker said, there's a reason it's called The View and not The Views, right? So what happens is when you do a show where there's a panel, right away you've got a preconceived topic, and that topic itself is not up for discussion. So if you go onto a panel and you don't agree with the premise of the topic, it's going to be a train wreck because you're negotiating something that isn't up for debate, not broadly speaking, but in the context of that segment. But then also you're just not going to be asked back. So I bring that up here because I don't agree with this premise at all. And like we're going to have in a friendly way, like a breakdown of how that is used to manipulate discourse in even a free market or a largely free market. I think the term free speech is, people always attack me like, oh, you say you're for free speech, but you're blah, blah, blah. I never say I'm for free speech. I hate that term. I think it is used interchangeably for several different concepts, some of which I am 100% for, some of which I am completely against. If you and I were going to have a conversation about Apple, and you're talking about something that grows on trees, and I'm talking about laptops, we're using the same word, but we're going to be talking past each other, right? So free speech is used to mean the illegality and immorality of governments to restrict discourse and communication between the citizens, right? And that is something that is indisputably true from my perspective. It's also used to mean that it's a good thing, broadly speaking, for as many people to have their voices heard and to run their mouths as possible, something which is I'm completely against and which makes absolutely no sense. And it's also used to mean that you, as someone who's vaguely or even strongly for free speech, have a duty or should have a preference to hear other people out, which is also something that's completely crazy. So you'll hear this in social media when you block someone or mute them. Oh, I thought you were for free speech. I thought you were for free speech. One is linked to the other. So people take these terms, they completely remove them from context, and they throw them around like some kind of flag or shield, to be more accurate, to kind of defend themselves. So I don't like that term. I don't believe in that term. I think it's an incoherent term, and I am much more interested in, and I think there's a lot of people who it would be beneficial if they were completely marginalized and silenced. And that is how free markets work, which is when someone is a completely reprehensible person, and I'll leave it to people watching this to define it in their own personal way, you're under no obligation to hear them out or to provide them a microphone or to, countenance their ideas. And it doesn't have to be something political. I'm not interested in hearing Randy Weingarten's view on why school choice is a bad idea. I don't believe
speech. I don't have to listen to it,
teachers unions. Yeah. I don't believe a word coming out of her mouth. I think she is an evil person who is destroying the lives of
with him
many
on that.
children. And I'm not interested in what she has to say. Now, she legally has the right to do whatever she wants, but in terms of this free speech milieu that let's all put our ideas in the marketplace and come to some kind of consensus of truth in this kind of
That's not
enlightenment
what free
model,
speech is
I think
about.
that's something I'm not at all interested in doing.
What do you think about kind of a culture of free expression? Sort of this idea, and this is kind of what John Stuart Mill talks about in his 1859 treatise on liberty. He wasn't really speaking about government censorship, but he was more speaking about a conformist culture in Victorian England that
Sure.
didn't have a broader kind of Overton window of acceptable opinion, that people were just too sensitive. And that's what I think what you get a little bit of today from folks who are kind of like the people you were talking about before. You're violating my. I think what they're actually saying, albeit inarticulately, and maybe I'm saying it inarticulately right now as well, is that like there are things that a lot of people believe, but they just don't feel like they can speak up about it.
Sure.
Whether it's COVID, whether it's trans rights, you name it. And so, but they have this sense, and we always look at the past through rose-colored glasses, that in the past, society was more open to dissenters, was more open to playing devil's advocacy. Again, we look at
How many casinos are left
glasses,
in
but
it's a
Atlantic
lie.
City, though?
That's a complete lie. It was a felony to teach women how
I think
to
it was
use
a
birth
very
control
shrewd business
to
move.
prevent pregnancy from happening. And they went undercover to visit doctors as cops. And if a doctor, I'm not talking about abortion, I'm talking about condoms and prophylactics. It was a felony to explain this to people. It was a felony to mail them information about using this to people. In this Adams administration, the second president, it was a felony to criticize the government. The Sedition Act, the very first thing that was censored under our beloved Constitution was political speech to criticize the government. This claim that the most important thing that the First Amendment protects is political speech might be true culturally. It is completely false historically, because that is the first thing that they targeted, and understandably so. There were books, Ulysses is an example, where it was illegal to mail them. And this isn't like, antebellum Confederacy times. This is the 20th century. So this, and also another thing conservatives don't like, I'm not saying you're a conservative, is that the Free Speech League and these early organizations that were organized to promote, this kind of discourse were commies, and not like lefties, like today, like literal communists. Teddy Roosevelt wanted people deported, and succeed in doing so for having views that he regarded as anathema. That fire in a movie theater, crowded theater quote was about people saying that the draft was unconstitutional. So, and the Supreme Court unanimously agreed that it's okay to censor that. So this boomerang claim that we used to have this perspective on free discourse is a complete lie.
I would if I could lease, but I drive too
ahistoric
much.
as the 1619 Project. America and pretty much every culture has always and has to have some kind of censorious aspect to it. Now, there are certain pockets where, free discourse is much more accepted than in others, and that's, broadly speaking, a great thing. But this claim that we're ever going to be at a place where, all the ideas are on the table is not only crazy, but I think undesirable, because I don't want to have it stigmatized for people to be discussing sexuality with children. So there's certain things that everyone listening to this will have their own line where, like, you know what? It's good that some things aren't even talked about at all. And that, because once you start talking about them, some people start doing them. Violence is another one. Once that becomes normalized in speech, it's not that long until people are pulling
Vegas
out their
was
guns.
much bigger.
Now, in
That's
some
why.
cases, that's a good thing, but it's still not a fun thing.
I think you're right. And if you look at a far enough back time horizon, you are going to find extraordinary examples of censorship. And in most cases, in some cases, you don't even have to look that far back, right? But a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves in America about the McCarthy era and around World War I and the Schenck case, which is what you referenced, which is where the fire in a crowded theater.
Who had their free speech harmed by the McCarthy era?
Well, you can look at Oppenheimer. They touch on that. They talk about how Oppenheimer lost his clearances because of his alleged communist affiliations.
Yeah, but
My brother had the same thing. He
his
replaced
speech
the
was
motor
in no
after
way
100K.
infringed. He could say whatever the hell. If I go up here and say I'm a Klansman and you don't want to have me on your podcast, in what way is my First Amendment free speech restricted?
No, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it is. But what you found during the McCarthy era were government hearings where they essentially browbeat a bunch of people for being communist, and some of them were.
Yeah, there are a
Being
lot nicer
members
now.
of a secret organization dedicated to the violent overthrow of
That
the
was in the
government
90s.
in service of a foreign dictator who had engaged not that long before that, in genocide of millions of his own citizens. So to portray this as somehow like, oh, I voted for the Green Party and I got kicked out of my job is completely disingenuous. I'm not saying you're doing that, but that's how it's portrayed.
No, sure. And I do agree that there is not enough nuance that's brought to the McCarthy era. But even if you take that as a justifiable reason to censor someone, right?
How are they being censored?
Well,
I'm
we can
firing
look at the college professors who lost their jobs, right? I mean, and if we're talking about at least state power, you're talking about, in many cases, state universities.
But how are they censored? You don't have a right to say whatever you want. If I'm a chef at a restaurant, I can't go out into where the people are sitting and start delivering talks about healthcare. Like, you can't say whatever you want at someone else's job. That doesn't make any sense.
Sure, and I don't disagree with that. And in that last example, I'm talking about professors at public colleges and universities with tenure, in many cases losing their tenureship with a lack of due process. We're talking about state universities, right? Where, and again, you're an anarchist, right? So you might not believe that within the context of a college or university environment that the state should be able to or shouldn't be able to punish a professor.
Almost
for
every
their
state has
viewpoints,
casinos
right?
now.
Or for their political beliefs or allegiances. But the case law, as it's developed over the years, has found that to the extent you are a tenured faculty member at a college or university campus, that they can't fire you alone for your political beliefs.
But they were being fired for being members of a terrorist group. They were not being fired for their political beliefs, by and large.
You can believe anything, right? The question is, were you conspiring to overthrow the government?
Right. No, were you a member of a secret organization, a card-carrying member? It's not, do you like Marx? It was, were you taking orders from Stalin? That's not the same.
No, it's definitely not the same. But you'd have to look at any individual example to see whether they were actually conspiring. And this is actually, I'm glad you bring it up, Michael, because this is part of the discussion around free speech on college campuses right now surrounding Students for Justice in Palestine, right? You have a number of chapters of Students for Justice in Palestine on college campuses right now who are chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, or Intifada, right? And some of the arguments that, in this case, the state of Florida is making is that these groups are conspiring with Hamas, or they are providing material support for terrorism because they are supporting the actions that Hamas took in Israel on October 7th. And the argument that FIRE has made is that you need to show a lot more than that they just support, that they member of an organization that is supportive of some actions that a terrorist organization, right? Is there communication between Students for Justice in Palestine about how they're going to support this organization? Are they providing financial support? Or, so there needs to be a little bit more than just, well, they support the actions of this group, right? And that's where due process comes in, right? That's where you kind of find out the facts of any individual circumstance. But just kind of creating a blanket exception to the First Amendment in this case for anyone who supports Hamas or is a member of Students for Justice in Palestine, I think is painting with a broad brush and creating a sort of guilt by association that we've largely stood against in the United States. I mean, do you disagree?
I don't think that's what guilt by association means. Like, if I'm a member of a group, let's take it out of the Hamas situation. If the Klan is a terrorist group, right? The purpose of the KKK was to terrorize innocent people in order to extra legally impose an order and to keep them in a state of submission and fear, right? So if I'm a member of a group that's called Students for the Klan, if I'm not coordinating with the Klan and I'm not making any exchange with David Duke or something like that, and the administration says, this
not
isn't
quite as much as
something
communists.
secret. You're calling yourselves
You gotta admit,
Students for the Klan.
China,
this kind of rhetoric is not acceptable on my campus.
Soviet Union.
I don't think there's a question here of, I don't know what due process would look like because that's not
Well,
a
we'll
crime.
have to-
You're certainly legally have every right to
killed last
support
century.
and promote the Klan. Point being, it is perfectly appropriate in that case, and I want to take it away from Hamas because that's much more ambiguous than the Klan for most people. I think it's perfectly acceptable in that case for administrators to be like, yeah, this is a line we're not willing to cross.
And how do you see the Hamas situation as more ambiguous?
Because I don't know what exactly these students in Florida are saying.
Gotcha.
If they're simply saying, we're for Palestinian,
Oh, yeah.
we're for Palestine, we don't believe in Israel, blah, 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 that's perfectly acceptable. If they're saying...
I'm just saying that's probably the worst of the worst, though. You're talking about 100 million people last century,
that we want to help Hamas, that is is a terrorist organization, even if you believe that terrorism is justified, that is a very different situation.
So if you look at the kind of toolkit, I guess, is what has been the topic of that conversation.
Compare that to Hitler's possible 6 million.
It more or less says that they're in kind of common cause with Hamas, but the common cause is kind of rhetorical support. It is PR support. It is, marches. It is rallies. It is candlelight vigils. Do you see that as the sort of material support that is?
It's not like just
essentially becoming a part of a terrorist organization.
I would have to think about it and have to look at the specific case. But I'm much more in favor of freedom of association than I am in terms of freedom of speech. I think everyone has morally the right to say whatever the hell they want, and everyone.
And I believe that's what the Democrats are trying to do in this country. They want one party, and they also want to disarm.
Else morally.
And they also want the state to support everybody. They want universal income. It sounds more communist than democratic to me, but the word democracy does not exist in our Constitution, or I should say Bill of Rights or Declaration of Independence.
It has the right to engage with them or not as they see fit. It is government that abrogates this freedom of association, which is far more important, because if I don't have to ever deal with you, you can say whatever the hell you want. You can go F off to your place, talk your talk, have your show, and we can live next to each other peaceably. But it's governments that force people to interact who otherwise would never have to.
Normatively, what do you think about freedom of speech and kind of the associated values, right? Let's say devil's advocacy, talking across lines of difference, thought experimentation. Are these things that you think should be advocated for within most social context? Do you think they produce goods?
But unless he is the actual authoritarian that they profess him to be and to want to be, he can't make that happen. Even people in his own party fought him on the wall. They fought him on getting rid of Obamacare. He did pass what he, a lot of the things he said. I don't vote, so. I mean, the lesser of two evils, if I voted, it's not a hard decision.
Within various associations, I understand that in an anarchist society where everything is based around free association, right? That people can do whatever the hell they want. And they can police their association however the hell they want. But then there's a question within that association, what is the...
Unless you have a one-party system, which is what is trying to be installed right now.
Normative good. What is the small t toleration that should be encouraged? Or does it depend on the association?
Of course, exactly. So we could take this out of the realm of politics. If you
vote.
and I have a hamster breeding community,
but I also know,
and, we're breeding rare species.
But I also know my dollar went a whole lot farther 4 years ago.
breeds of hamsters and long hair and albino, and someone's coming in with their politics, even the politics are perfectly banal and generic.
Did he make some serious mistakes during COVID? Fuck yes, he did. He trusted the wrong people. And not even just about COVID. A lot of his administration. Bolton? Come on.
And the kind of stuff you could see on a t-shirt at a mall, it's perfectly appropriate for us.
And that's why I don't vote.
To be like, don't come back to these meetings.
Because it don't matter.
Because that's not what we're about. So, and or you could have, you know, if it's
Right.
Karen who's running.
And I just said that. I just said they printed $7 trillion. Like, his handling of COVID was horrid. His views behind the vaccine, I believe, were horrible. But do I think that he'd have been forcing it upon people? I don't know. I mean, we won't know because he didn't get elected, apparently.
The hamster group, and Karen thinks it's unambiguous that literally everything has to be about how evil Trump is. Then Karen will say, all right, like, well, what are you, a Trump supporter? You don't want to talk about Trump while we're trying to talk about hamster?
Okay, now that spending had to be voted in by the Congress. Who controlled just about all of Congress at that point, at the end of Trump's administration? That had to be approved. Like I said, both parties, I think, are deplorable. I think one we have a chance of surviving longer with, basically.
Hamsters. So there's no, I think, should. I think if this is everyone, you know, anarchism as applied, in my view, is the understanding that is incumbent on all of us to set and define our own boundaries. And if we don't, then other people will cross those boundaries, and it's going to have negative consequences on the self. And this is something I think is universal and applies to everyone regardless of their political persuasions. And I think one of the big problems in general is people feel powerless or are powerless to enforce their own personal boundaries. And it creates friction where some was not necessary.
Do you believe, I mean, I'm assuming not, but like something significant is lost when you don't have public places?
And what sucks is it didn't have to. And honestly, I think Trump just folded. I think he just folded. You could see he was fighting. He didn't want to at first believe anything. He did, you know. I don't understand. Maybe he was just weathered down by the Russia bullshit. But he just didn't feel like he collapsed around it. He just threw his hands up and just let them decide. The people that he thought he could trust. And just, that was truly disappointing. But at least he had some input. The man that is in that office right now, wow.
Where there isn't that sort of boundary policing, where people can say whatever the hell they want, where you can have a speaker's corner in London, for example, or not really.
All it was
right?
mean
like
tweets.
That's the one thing that I think you lose in an anarchist society in the free speech sense.
Oh,
Which
I
is
believe
just
it
like,
will. I believe
there
it
is
will.
always some place you can go to speak freely. I guess besides, you know, in an anarchist society, it could be your house, you know, or it could be your property.
Or it could be social media. These are not government agencies. I mean, Elon, again, for quite some time until Elon brought over Twitter, there was a complete corporate consensus, you know, as to like COVID discussions, right? And everyone's just like, everyone's all black-pilled, we're screwed.
So
the
you
point
pick
I always
Biden?
make is, you don't need a majority. That's the Democratic model. You only need an alternative. And as long as you have one alternative, then this whole monopoly edifice collapses.
Nikki's not going to get the nomination.
And the misunderstanding, in my view, that most people have is the belief that markets tend toward monopoly. That eventually it's just going to be one place where everyone has to talk.
That's the choice.
But if you look at any field, if you and I were talking 10 years ago, and I said that on every supermarket, there wouldn't be just Diet Coke, but Coke Zero. There'd be 2 types of sugarless soda. I'd look like a crazy person. It's like a punchline from a bad comic. Yet that's the case, and no one even bats an eye. So we have, in every aspect that's not under state control, we have more choices, more outlets. Before I was born, there were 3 networks to get the news. NBC, ABC, and CBS, 3 shades of progressivism, and maybe Bill Buckley makes an appearance once in a while to be the right of center guy. Then you had CNN, then you had Fox News, so then there were like 5, headline news, whatever, MSNBC, 6. Now you have YouTube. It's infinite. And they can never get that genie out of the bottle. Before you and I were born, if you and I wanted to censor an author, all we got to do is kill him, round up all the copies of his book, burn them, and it's done. Now, I can take any book, press one button, duplicate it infinitely, send it anywhere on Earth at the speed of light, and create a magic spell so that only people who know the counter spell can even read it. It sounds like science fiction, but that's the status quo. Censorship was not stopped as a result of people believing free speech or governments. It stopped as a result of technology, and that cannot be undone.
Well, the government certainly tries, right? And unsuccessfully. I mean, when we saw the Twitter files come out, we saw all the examples of the government trying to jawbone Twitter.
Alex Jones just had to pay, I think, or he's on the hook for like the GDP of France.
I know, yeah.
Because he said nobody died at Sandy Hook. What Alex got that idea from was there was a book with that title that he read. That book is impossible to find because the author was sued correctly. The copies were all destroyed. You can't find it, except if you go to archive.org, it's there for anyone to download for free. So even something as nefarious as that, which is completely inaccurate and kind of malevolent, you know, in terms of the parents, still cannot be stopped from people being able to access it somewhat freely and for free.
Yeah, and they tried.
Yeah, I also read in the news that he made his whole family richer, but I have never seen any plausible sources about that. I've seen a lot of reports of that, but I've never seen any sources of any of that. Because don't you think that would be one of the biggest things they'd be going after him for right now? But they're not.
I believe it was in the 20th century to censor that book.
Yeah,
Hitman.
none of the above.
Do you remember this
No.
story? This was a book that was written under.
No, actually, Trump lost money during his tenure. Didn't take a salary and lost a lot of money because he turned all that stuff over to those kids.
Pseudonym. The person who wrote it kind of started it as like I believe a murder.
Right. Have you seen any details of that? Have you seen any proof of any of that? There's reports of that stuff, and that comes from legacy media. That's what I'm saying, man. Is I don't care what's legacy source it's from. I'm skeptical every time I see a headline. Every time now, because every time I dig deep into something like that, I find that 80% of it's false. It's like I said, it's hard to stay white pilled when I'm so black pilled right now about the future. And that's why I live my life, to the extent of my means right now, because I don't see the point. I don't see the point in the savings and all that stuff right now, other than trying to live comfortably longer when things really hit the fan.
Mystery kind of novel approach, but it ended up becoming a how-to manual to kill someone. And turns out someone used the book and they were able to connect it to.
That's why I don't have a problem spending $150 for dinner.
I actually
for two.
think it was a couple of killings.
When a few years back, I'd have been like, "What the fuck?"
The people who were
what am I saving it
their
for?
families sued the publisher of this book, and the publisher ended up settling. And they actually the publisher wanted to fight the case.
Where's the proof behind that, George?
But the insurance company, and this isn't something people know. It's like
got all the nuclear
lawsuits happen, you as the person being sued don't have a
hopefully
choice
you're being
as to how you can
sarcastic.
fight. Like if you're going to use your insurance to help pay
I hope you're
for
being
the lawsuit,
sarcastic.
like the insurance companies are just going to force you to
If
settle
you
in that
believe
case.
it-
Even in this case, if you feel like you have a strong First Amendment claim that your book didn't aid in
And not an expensive
in
place either.
this killing, the insurance company in this case made the publisher settle, and they went through this kind of whole process to try and destroy any copy of the book that existed. But I think Reason Magazine, as I saw online, says there are still something like 20,000 copies out there, and you can find it on the internet if you want. It turns out that the book was actually written by, I think, a divorced mother of two, like not the person you would sort of expect to write a book about how to conduct a hit.
Yeah,
But,
I got into it on Twitter with somebody, and then not long after that, they shot up like a tattoo parlor, a lot of other places.
I love his Twitter rants, though. I love watching a thread with him going back and forth with somebody with no followers and stuff like that. When he does that, to me, that's entertainment.
And they had written a book where they had used the names as characters of people that they actually later did murder. And I'm like, talk about like literally dodging a bullet. So that's kind of Roman McClaskey, I think was his name. It's kind of creepy when stuff like that happens, of course.
Well, you find it. I mean, this is a story throughout time, right? Like when the Columbine shooting happened in the 90s, right? They tried to pin that on Marilyn Manson because the shooters listened to Marilyn Manson, right?
Right.
So there, but in this case, I think that in the Hitman book case, it was a lot closer, right? It's like they kind of followed the script.
Like, you go to their house and shoot them. Like, I'm sorry, am I missing something?
Well, it talks about how to identify your mark and to follow them around to learn their patterns, right? And I guess they had access to this book, and that's what they were reading ahead of time. I'd have to look more closely at
it
the
doesn't
case.
seem like I don't think it's that hard. Okay, but maybe what do I know? I've never killed any. I've never gotten in a fight or killed anyone.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's the argument that the publisher of the book would make, right? Were they allowed to continue making those arguments and the insurer didn't force them to settle? But you also see this argument, kind of speaking of anarchy, in the Anarchist Cookbook, which makes its rounds on the internet and I think is banned in some countries.
Not in the U.S., of course.
Not in the not in the U.S. Of course, although some have tried.
Yes.
Right. Some have tried. What is the core right under an anarchist system, right? Like, do you believe in and what serves as the basis for that right? When we look at the Declaration of Independence, right, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that the natural rights theory, right?
Sure, I think that's the base of anarchism. I think that's fair to say. Just this idea that there's different rationalizations or justifications for anarchism, but the idea that no one is in a position to infringe on your freedom.
And so I would imagine then that you don't believe in like social contract theory that would...
No one does. No. So social contract theory is completely incoherent and insane because it is a contract of which the terms are never made clear, which you implicitly consent to, and you cannot ever leave.
Okay, I will agree with you there, Morton. I tried to watch read Atlas Shrugged, and it took a 3-part movie that was still very bad to slightly bring my interest into it. Atlas Shrugged is so hard to read. So hard to read.
And it's a claim to be the basis for how governments form, even though no one even pretends that any government has been formed as a result of it. It's a complete fairy tale that makes no sense whatsoever. And it's rape culture.
This idea that you can bind those who are not even born to a sort of system that they didn't consent to participate in.
This idea that you could take someone's consent when they've never said anything or implied it, and when they're screaming at you in the face, I do not consent, and you tell them, well, yeah, you really did because you're in this geographic location. It's complete rape culture.
You
should have come back
to my house. I've gotten a couple
you
audiobooks.
Right?
I couldn't
Yeah,
get it.
no, and I agree with you on this. I don't disagree. This social contract theory, I think it's something that a lot of us have to pretend to believe in because it's the basis.
No, it's the rationalization. It's not the basis. It's the rationalization.
Rationalization, sure. Yeah, it's a rationalization. I mean, the whole
it's a complete fairy tale. It makes no one believes it. They just like where it leads you to.
Yeah, which is necessarily going to have to be a government, right? Because can you have a government realistically and practically without a belief or a rationalization or a pretend belief in a social contract theory, right?
You can. Some people have. There's other excuses for it, but it's really kind of this last gasp where you're trying to pretend that you're not imposing your will through force on other people and doing a might makes right thing.
Yeah. Well, so I want to return a little bit to, you were talking a little bit about Elon Musk and what he did with Twitter. I presume as like a normative matter, you think this is a positive thing for society?
Enormously positive.
So
community notes is the greatest thing that's happened in I'm dead serious. It's the greatest thing that's happened probably in like the last 10 years culturally.
Yeah. And it's also can be really funny.
Yes, that's correct.
In the way that it corrects people,
yes,
so to speak.
Wait, is this show named after Hoppe?
No.
Okay, because that's his catchphrase.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, we just thought it was kind of a catchy way we discuss speech issues, so to speak.
Oh,
is
okay.
I'm a
like
good. Well, that's
So
right.
that's his little
a-
catchphrase.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's a meme.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
It sits on my desk
it was
in
just
the
like
office.
we just thought it was kind of catchy way to subtly reference the topic
Got it,
of
got
the
it, okay.
podcast, and then we put after the colon the free speech podcast because that helps with SEO, right?
Oh, yeah, smart.
but you know, and again, I'm trying to just kind of get a better sense of like what you think about free speech in the last 10 years. And I apologize if I'm not articulating it very clearly because I don't talk to anarchists a lot, right? So a lot of times we're talking about free speech in relationship to the government, right? But a lot of the bases for free speech, and a lot of the philosophical trees, whether you're going back to John Milton's Areopagitica, or you're going to John Stuart Mill's On Liberty, or you're talking about Jonathan Rauch's Kindly Inquisitors, I mean, these aren't arguments for how the government should treat speech. There are arguments for like how society should behave.
They're all, look, we've run the experiment, we have enough data. People are not interested, human beings are not interested in truth. They're interested in narratives, they're interested in stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the number of things, you know, so I would recommend people read Jonathan Haidt and do some evolutionary psychology. This enlightenment idea that if you have, you know, 100 people and you put the facts of the matter in front of them like a buffet, that, you know, after a little bit of going back and forth, oh, you know, maybe I like navy blue, maybe I like purple, oh, maybe blah, blah, that they're all going to come to some kind of consensus that is roughly analogous to the truth is completely false. And I'll give you a very obvious example of this that for anyone in the political spectrum can see. For a long time during COVID, we were told to stay 6 feet apart from each other, okay? Then when the COVID wave came back, whatever the second wave was, Delta, I don't remember what it was, they didn't bring back social distancing. So if it worked before, why aren't we doing it again? And if it didn't work before, why did we do it in the first place? So this shows that people aren't interested in truth. They're interested in being told what to do. And it is human beings, especially not particularly intelligent people, and very intelligent, educated people, are interested in consensus and in tribalism, as opposed to being the person who says, remember, when in the fairy tale, The Emperor Has New Clothes, it was a kid who pointed it out, because all the adults were too invested and fearful of the power to say what they were seeing. So there's a huge cost in every culture, despite this claim of America as this bastion of free speech, of being a truth teller, because many people who are in power don't like you pointing out that they're bad, and they were going to do things to you and your family if you do something about it.
No, I agree with that, and I agree with it especially in the short term.
Yes.
That, you know, for lack of a better phrase, like you're in this sort of anarchist period, and often those who are trying to create a pole of orthodoxy or enforce sort of conformist thought will win in the short term, particularly when people are scared, right? But I think in the long run, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective, truth does tend to win.
Yes. Yes. But that's not a democratic thing.
In what sense? Like what? But it is a sort of marketplace of ideas thing. It can only win if the ideas are allowed to be put forth, right?
If I am running, let's suppose you're the government, you have a bridge, a toll bridge, and I'm a private organization, I have a toll bridge as well. And your bridge is going to be not only more expensive, it's going to have potholes, and it's going to be open less. As the consumer, I don't need to know the intricacies of free market versus the state or economics, things like that. All I see is cheaper, more efficient, more expensive, and more of a pain. So people will come to the right conclusion. They're not going to understand or need to understand what's going on in the background. It's usually above their pay grade, and in any case, it's usually not of interest to them.
Yeah.
Good.
The book you reference, I think, are referencing from Jonathan Haidt is The Righteous Mind.
Correct.
And his kind of elephant rider theory
Well, you know,
of how
yes,
people
that was a
get to
company. He's not gonna spend
their
30K.
political beliefs. But I do think the
But
marketplace of
from doing
ideas
the stuff that, like we have
theory
out in
of freedom of
Pittsburgh,
expression, I think, has
that you
always
don't
been
need batteries
oversold.
for, just has
Yes.
everything's in the cloud.
But
you
I
don't
do
have to worry
think,
about.
and
things
one of the
getting
things that
unplugged and
our
stuff
president, Greg
rather than
Lukianoff,
power.
often talks about as being a more compelling argument for free
Yeah,
speech.
I mean, I
is what
put
he
together
calls
an
the
order and then
looking
let
glass
you know.
theory, but is also elsewhere referred to as the informational theory, which is, it's just always important to know the world.
Yeah, no,
as
we
it
already,
is now.
when me and
Important to
when
whom?
me and Nate went around,
To
that
us.
that was
Right,
part
you
of
can-
the story.
Who's us?
So
So
I
me,
got the total
right?
number of
Okay,
cameras.
speak
I
for
just
yourself.
need to see what it's going to
But,
be.
but
And
yeah,
I've never
for, I
ordered
mean,
that
for
many
anyone,
cameras
right?
from
No,
anyone.
not
your
for
outputs are
anyone.
only your outputs are only as good.
And I did
as the
now.
data that's
When you
input.
check your
Do you
card,
have
how do you
lawyers?
find out the balance? My card,
FYI, yeah.
it's giving
Yes,
me
so
like
when it comes
18.
to the
This is the
law,
balance is
what I
18,000. I'm
think
like, that's
is
not my
completely
card.
irrelevant. I'm
My
going to
card
shut
is
my
not a
mouth
balance of
and do what my
18,000.
lawyer tells me.
That must be like the whole
and I might
company
ask
as
some
a whole.
questions, but in any case, I don't have to be a legal scholar or
So
a
how do you
lawyer.
find out
I will
what's
defer to them.
available on your card?
And it's appropriate in many cases for me as the layman not to know what the hell is going on and to be deferential. Now, this is something that
I
is
asked for that, and they
weaponized
gave me
in
just
terms
what
of
the balance
trust
was,
the
so they
experts,
wouldn't
trust
say
the
anything about
science.
available, so.
But it's not at all the case that it's useful
Yeah,
for
okay,
everyone
well,
to
I
have an
guess
understanding
payment's
of
only
everything.
Perhaps not
$100 or
in
something
every
like
case,
that.
but
They might
I
have
think
enough room on there. So
the best
I'll
way
put
to
the order
understand
together,
the
and if I
world is
can't
to
do it,
learn
I'll just
as much about the
reach
world
out to
as
Mike
possible.
and AJ
and
and
not
tell them, hey,
not
you guys need to put a
not just
different card
learn
in
what people believe or that
right.
might end up being true.
All right,
but
yeah,
what
I'm
people
glad,
believe
man.
that
We
is
get this
false.
shit
Like
done.
you can't fix a problem
Right.
unless you know that problem exists, right? So the analogy we've used before is like, you can censor, but then you don't know what those people believed. So you either don't know the truth that they might have spoken, or you don't know the falsehood that they might have spoken that also is a signal that also tells you something that's important to know, perhaps that there's a problem to fix or a mind that needs to be changed. So censorship in that sense is like...
Thing is, today,
breaking the
they would say
thermometer,
that
right?
those
You
are
just don't know-
secrets.
You don't know what the temperature is anymore, but it's still 45 degrees out.
That's all true, but the point is,
I mean,
not
they're
only
not-
do
they're
most
not
people
even
not want to understand the world, they don't
responsible
even
to
want to
report to
understand
Congress
themselves.
when they get brought in there. They just
the
don't
number of
answer
people who are
fucking
even
questions. They
interested in
refuse to
empathy,
answer
let alone
questions.
practice it, by which I mean the ability to
The old
see
FBI
issues
used to at
through other
least
people's
lie.
perspectives, is astonishingly low. And the number of people on social media, and people, by the way, on social media are going to be smarter than average because it's a written medium. So right away, it's going to take a little bit of intelligence to even be step your foot in the door. They just want to divide everything into in-group and out-group. And you see this all the time. Oh, you sound like a liberal. Oh, you sound like a Trump voter. And once you're slotted into that box, in their minds, there's nothing further for them to hear from you. So they're not interested in understanding things at all. They're interested in perceiving things, whether it's in-group or out-group, and that's enough for them.
I want to talk about some stories now, stories that you've told in some of your writings, because we've been talking a little bit about theory here. But Emma Goldman.
Yeah.
There you go.
She's right there.
And yeah, I can't see who those those people are on it.
She's on all the way on the left. That's where she belongs.
Michael's pointing to a big, it looks like poster-sized picture of his book, The White Pill, if you're listening in the podcast version. But Emma Goldman was persecuted here in the United States.
Oh, yes.
Was exiled, right? I mean, she has a free speech story to tell, not just here in the United States, but also like she took the free speech argument to Lenin too.
Directly,
and
personally, yep.
Personally, and called him out for what she thought was an abandonment of the ideals of the revolution.
Yep.
To which Lenin said,
"It's true.
Well, there can't be any free speech in the revolutionary period, right?"
Yeah, it's a bourgeois extravagance.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about her story?
Well, sure. I mean, again, conservatives really have a very bad idea of history, and they think, well, we've always fought for free speech. Again, the first free speech groups were organized to fight for the rights of radicals, by which I mean like communists. This is before 1917, to promote their ideas, which were heavily censored either through the market, which I don't really regard as censorship, obviously, or through governments. And at a certain point, after Leon Czolgosz, who said he was inspired by Emma Goldman, killed President McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt became president, they basically made it a law that if you were a leper or syphilis or an anarchist, like, we don't want you here. Like, and Teddy Roosevelt said, like, anarchism is like worse than slavery. And at the time, there were actual slaves still alive, in the United States. Point being, they went and they retroactively removed the citizenship of the man she had married. So he wasn't a citizen, and therefore she was no longer a citizen. And then it's like, all right. And there was something called the Red Arc, which a very young J. Edgar Hoover was in charge of, and they rounded up a bunch of radicals, put them on this ship, and they said, all right, y'all can, you guys like free speech, you guys like socialism, y'all can fuck off back to Russia. And they deported them and shipped them away. And the reason she's on the cover of the White Pill, and the reason I talk about her and her partner in literal crime, Alexander Berkman, as much as possible, they were hardcore lefties, as hard as it gets. Emma Goldman gave a speech in Union Square in the early 20th century, and she said, go to the capitalists, I don't remember what word she used, and ask for work. And if they don't give you work, ask for bread. And if they don't give you bread, take bread. Her point being, you don't have a duty to starve, and it's perfectly appropriate to take what you want to feed your family in the era where so few have so much and so many have so little. Then she goes, so her lefty credentials could not be beat. They tried to kill Frick, who was Andrew Carnegie's right-hand man, shot him, didn't succeed in murdering him. Berkman did a long time in jail as a consequence for this. So these were, in many ways, the godparents of Antifa, right? And Antifa love Emma Goldman. She goes to they go to the Soviet Union. They see what's going on there, horrified. And Goldman explicitly says, look, I'm for violence. I'm for revolution. I'm for slitting throats. But you slit throats for the sake of the workers. You do it to bring about this era where you have freedom of association, freedom of speech, where everyone's working together for the sake of a society. And when she fled Russia with Berkman, he wrote a book called Bolshevik Myth. She wrote a book called My Disillusionment in Russia, which was later, there's a sequel, split in half, called My Further Disillusionment in Russia. And she goes to England, and all the lefties are there. Oh, Red Emma, yay! They're applauding because she's so out there and she's such a radical. And she goes, this isn't what we're for. This is worse than the Tsar. And when she started her speech, it was a standing ovation. And when she was finished, you could hear a pin drop because they didn't want to hear it. Because all they wanted to hear was, this is the society of the future. Like, we're the smart ones. We're the good ones. And people who had never stepped foot outside the United States felt comfortable lecturing to her that she didn't understand what was going on in the newfound Soviet Union, or what became the Soviet Union.
Did you ever see that movie? It's the Epic, I think, by Warren Beatty. Reds.
No,
Yeah.
I just no, I haven't. I saw the clip with her in it.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's in it, and some of her disillusionment with the Soviet Union is featured in that film. But one of the interesting things about the film, just kind of as an aside, is like Roger Baldwin, who is one of the founders of the ACLU, is in that, and it kind of shows just how close the kind of anarchist, socialist, communist community was.
And Margaret Sanger too's in there. She used to write for
Yeah, and the reason I watched it is because Ira Glasser, who used to run the ACLU, was on our advisory council. He said, like, if you kind of want to understand that community at that time, Red's got it just perfectly right.
There was a woman named Mabel Dodge Luhan who had an apartment, and the building was torn down, and now it's the building that was like the, I believe, the apartment building in France, in Mad About You. Point being, she had a salon, not a hair salon, like a salon in the old sense where people get together, meet once a week. I think it was Thursdays. And John Reed, who I think Warren Beatty plays in Reds, described her as like a complete simpleton, dumb girl, because she went there and she never talked, Mabel Dodge Luhan. And the point is, she was one of these, you see, there's contemporary people nowadays, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but these like rich ladies, like a Real Housewife, who think they're just so badass because they're friends with these radicals. And you know, there's no one at home, but they think it's cool that, you know, Ibram Kennedy's at their house, something like that. Like, oh my God, I'm so out there. So she had these salons, and Bill Haywood, head of the big union guy, Sanger's there, Emma Goldman, Jack Reed, who she had, Mabel Dodge Luhan had a long affair with. They're all in there together, cross-pollinating. So this New York City Village era of that period really was this kind of punching above its weight scene, and where modernism really was born. And Mabel Dodge Luhan, who I just mentioned to you, she also was helpful in bringing in what was called the Armory Show, which was a show in the Armory in New York City, where it was the first time that European modern art was displayed in the States, including very famously Duchamp's New Descending a Staircase, which is not representational. So all the newspaper cartoonists had a fun time, you know, making fun of it. But she was really this very important, although personally highly unimpressive figure And it was a lot of cross-pollination. And I got to tell you, that's one of the reasons I'm very excited that I currently live in Austin, because maybe it's not the same exact thing, but there's a lot of cross-pollination here between the crypto people, the podcasters, the comedians, the biohackers, like the white people stuff, like Whole Foods and cold plunges. Like everyone's here and they're interacting, and it's really punching above its weight.
I think it's overstated often, but people talked about the rise of Silicon Valley being somewhat like the rise of Florence during the Renaissance, right? There's value, I guess, of people who are creative and innovative just being in the same place, right? And it does seem like people are moving to Austin, and it's getting some of the same network effects that you get from everyone being in the same place. You see a little bit of it with Miami as well. And Silicon Valley is still the place in tech. Hasn't been eclipsed yet, I don't think. But I was going to ask you about kind of your thoughts on Austin, so I'm glad I got them. But I wanted to ask you just kind of for your concluding thoughts on Emma Goldman, because we started the podcast talking about the Red Scare, right? Do you think America's decision
that was the second Red Scare? The first Red Scare was what rounded up Emma Goldman.
Sure. So, you kind of took issue with how I described the Red Scare. Do you think what happened to Emma Goldman in the first Red Scare was appropriate?
There you go,
in the
Chopper.
sense of her connections to communism and revolutionary politics or whatever?
I don't know what you mean by appropriate. She was not a member of any organization taking orders from a foreign power, which is that, I don't know if that's called treason or sedition, whatever it is. So that is one major difference. The other big difference is, again, the government never, under the McCarthyism, no one to jail. Like, these people got fired, right? So like so they're advocating genocide, and their cost is you might not be able to be a screenwriter anymore. Like, I have very little sympathy for that. And the fact of the matter is, they just changed their names and they became heroic in terms of Hollywood. And they were lying. I mean, Alger Hiss was this big example of this, where he was very high up under FDR, and he was exposed for being a member of a Stalinist party, giving U.S. government secrets to a country that had just recently starved millions of Ukrainians to death for no reason. So this Hollywood version of the McCarthy era, that these people were just innocent victims who just had a different point of view, is a complete lie. Now, it is possible, and it is, I would actually lean toward this, that the government has no place investigating something like this. And that there's certainly an argument to have for that. But to act like these people are all innocent lambs who just, had their lives ruined because they flicked the wrong lever at the voting booth is completely untrue. And I'm not saying that you said that, but I'm just saying that's the popular perspective.
So I imagine you're critical.
And I'm just going to say one more thing.
Sure.
It just speaks to how dishonest it is, because the McCarthy era, which is the one time in America where lefties were canceled, is regarded as the second worst thing to ever happen since slavery, except for slavery. And if you think about it in those terms, it's just like, that's like the worst thing, that a bunch of screenwriters lost their jobs.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, in that sense, you mentioned canceled. Like, what do you make of this whole cancel culture debate currently?
I don't like that term, because everyone listening to this, there are people that they wouldn't hire because of their views, right? Like, the thing with cancel culture is that a lot of times it's giant media outlets are demonizing someone for like a tweet that they made in high school, which is completely disingenuous, is the problem. But if it turns out that someone is secretly, a rapist or a murderer, and you find out, and then you don't want to have them on your network anymore, I think that's perfectly appropriate. It's being framed, I think, as a false alternative. Either anyone can say and do anything they want, or, oh my God, this is horrible. There are times when it's appropriate to cancel someone, but the times that are presented as appropriate by the corporate press are almost always inaccurate. And I'll just say one more thing, just to pull back the curtain for people listening to this. And this is kind of a dirty little secret that, like, conservatives, not the senior conservative, don't like to talk about. A lot of these people who are weren't canceled for the ostensible reason. They were canceled because they're dicks and just assholes behind the scenes. And when the shit hit the fan, no one had their back. Alex Jones is like a really nice guy. I'm pals with him. And the reason he got uncanceled is because he's a nice person. There's other people who are canceled and remain canceled. It's not because of what they said or did. It's because no one wants to take a bullet for them or run interference for them because they're nasty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need to look at any individual case, of course.
But you're not going to know on the publicly like which is which. So I'm saying a lot of people who are canceled unfairly, yes, the ostensible reason is unfair, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is everyone's glad to be divested of them.
Let's say that the real reason is more or less the truth, right? I mean, how do you look at, again, getting back to the normative question, the can versus should, right? Of course, all these private enterprises, these private institutions can and have the free association right to fire whoever they want. But should they, and how should we think about whether they should or should not? For example, like, you know, just...
I'm going to interrupt you because I don't believe in democracy. So I don't believe the idea that every one of us is in a position to tell someone I've never met how they should run their company. That is crazy to me. So if you're telling me you shouldn't fire this athlete because they said something offensive, you don't have access to my budget sheet. You don't have access to my investments.
Venice is gross.
You don't know what I'm seeing on the back end because maybe my big funder is telling me, if you don't fire this guy, I'm pulling the plug on the whole organization. If I have that gun to my head, maybe I don't think what he did or said was that bad, but I don't have a choice. We saw this during Black Lives Matter, where the head of, what's that gay exercise organization? CrossFit. When the head of CrossFit was like, we're a gay exercise organization. We have nothing to do with this. And he lost his job as a result of this. Point being, because he was sticking out among everyone else like a sore thumb. So some of these companies may not even be a fan of whatever's going on, but as soon as you stick your head up, you become a target. Now, that's not something that's positive, but the point being, it's really easy for us sitting here on our asses to be like, well, you shouldn't have put up that BLM square, but it's like, if I hadn't, I'd be fired. What am I? It's really easy to say to someone, well, fine, you should be fired. Maybe I've got a wife and kids to take care of. So this is some moral calculus that I think everyone has to engage with on their own, and it's really unfair, in my view, for us to sit here and judge someone else when we don't have all the facts.
Did you judge the old regime of Twitter? I mean, did you have a perspective on that when it was deplatforming people or twisting itself into pretzels to justify, for example, deplatforming Donald Trump, and as we saw in the Twitter files, like...
I was judging what they ostensibly said was the reason. Because if their argument was, this guy is dangerous, and what he's saying can foment violence, Twitter is not a monopoly. It is so that reasoning I had issue with, because it's false. Because if you have a president, in their view, who is fomenting violence, it is extremely important for all of us to hear what he has to say.
By Venice flooding, you mean the toilet's backed up?
Because if this is done secretly, that's a bigger problem than knowing what he's saying publicly so we can prepare for it.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on that. And I think when we're trying to judge whether public or private institutions are living up to ostensibly what they claim to. So, for example, Twitter, right, claims to be the public square. Well, if you're eliminating a portion of the public because they engage in wrongthink as you judge it, well, you're not living up to what you claim to be, right?
Correct.
The local community group that doesn't want the person who kind of shit posts on the neighborhood community group every day and shares information that is irrelevant to most of the community members, like, that's different than Twitter, right? And posting for anyone who might want to come to your feed or for whom your post comes up in the algorithm. So it sounds like I have a better understanding now of kind of how you look at that issue. Is it just depends on the association. It depends what they hold themselves out to be. It depends what they promise or contractually promise in their terms of service, for example. But you know, even Elon Musk doesn't always enforce his policies.
That's right.
Consistently, right?
That's right.
Particularly in the early days, when there were the journalists getting deplatformed, seems to have started to work itself out a little bit. But I want to ask, kind of as a way to close up, about the Soviet Union.
Sure.
And you've written a lot about it, and tie it back to the conversation we were having about Emma Goldman. in a way. You know, Emma Goldman
420.
delivered that speech that you referenced in 1924 in London, where she describes the nature of the new Soviet workers' paradise.
Yeah.
Set
up some levies.
Deaf ears.
Easy.
But Solzhenitsyn, 1973, right, publishes Gulag Archipelago, and it makes waves. Like, what happened? What changed? Like, were people just ready to hear that argument, hear those stories now?
Well, I
loved
talk,
Europe.
This is a very long answer, and I talk about it at length in the White Pill.
loved
One
Europe.
of the big things that changed is that Stalin died, and then I think it was 1956, Khrushchev, who was Stalin's successor, delivered what he called the secret speech. And the secret speech said, well, first of all, even before that, Stalin made a pact with Hitler.
Only part of Europe I haven't really spent any time with is the one at parts I want to go to. It's the more I want to hit the Scandinavian areas and Iceland. I want to hit Iceland too.
And Hitler back then was Hitler, right? So if
They have a penis museum in Iceland. I gotta see it.
I'm a lefty, and all my life I've been like, all right, maybe I have issues with the Soviet Union, but they're basically the direction I want us to go, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a much better model than the United States. You're shaking hands with Hitler? Okay. For a lot of people, it's a wrap. Like, I was completely wrong. I'm out. So that was a very big moment for lots of hardcore lefties and even moderate lefties who were like, this is so beyond anything I'm comfortable with that I'm not hearing anything else you have to say. Right? So it was like a whittling process. But again, in 56, I think it was 56, Khrushchev gave a secret speech. It's called secret speech because there was like no foreigners allowed, and it was just the party cadres. And I think it was like 3 to 6 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours. It was some very long period. It was the middle of the night. And he's like, all the stuff they were saying about Stalin is true. All these people that were forced to confess in these trials were innocent, and they were tortured, and the orders came directly from Stalin. This cult, personality cult, is completely incompatible with Marxism-Leninism, and he just went down. And they're sitting there, and they can't say, oh, this is Western capitalist propaganda. He's sitting in Stalin's seat, literally. So that was also a big moment where they're like, oh, shit, we can't just hand-wave this away as the bourgeoisie or the capitalists try to make us look bad. They're like, okay, this actually was true.
You know what the Vatican reminds me of is that main Scientology temple there in Los Angeles that you see all the auditors in front of all the time. Kind of the same mindset in the way I think anymore.
And that was a very big reckoning point. And the thing is, when Stalin died, they closed down the gulags to enormous extent. So a lot of these former prisoners, I think they were sworn to secrecy largely. Well, good luck with that. Now were reintegrated into Soviet society, and they had families, they had friends, and you had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people who saw it firsthand, who lived in it, who came back a complete wreck from when they had been vanished for absolutely no reason, and they had their testimony. You're not going to say these are all like foreign saboteurs. So that was also a big moment internally where people were, and also in 1953, when Hungary tried to have a rebellion and the Soviet Union sent in the tanks. 1968, the Prague Spring, and the Russians and several other countries invaded Czechoslovakia. These were moments where you can't hand wave it away and be like, okay, it's just crazy Emma Goldman, or okay, this is dictatorship, but it's just temporary, it'll be over soon. This was 50, 60 years after the Russian Revolution and the Bolsheviks.
I've got a poster here in my office. It says they coined the term politically correct 50 years before the West caught on, and it's from the Museum of Communism.
That's in Prague. I have magnets from that place on my fridge. They said you couldn't get detergent in the store, but you could get brainwashed.
Well, and that's that's something you're an expert on, right? Is just the suppression of thought and belief and speech in authoritarian countries, in the Soviet Union, in North Korea. Like, can you just kind of walk our listeners through what it's like to be a person living in those societies? I think it's hard for us Americans to really understand. And you've visited North Korea.
I mean, it's like having an affair versus being married, right?
Having been
Catholic,
I feel the same way about the Vatican now.
Of course, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you have Yomi Park, who's come out of North Korea.
Sure.
I mean, she knows she would know it better than you. But like most people don't get into North Korea. Like they don't see what it's like.
I didn't see what it's like really, because again, I'm a tourist, right? So the back cover, the reason I wrote The White Pill, or one of the reasons, the back cover is an Ayn Rand quote where she says, when she was testifying from the House Un-American Activities Committee in the 40s, before McCarthy was in the Senate, and she goes, "It's almost impossible to convey to a free people what it's like to live in a totalitarian dictatorship." Now, I'm sure lots of people, or if not everyone listening to this, is sick of woke stuff and, woke this and woke that, and you turn on Netflix. I was just watching Master of the Universe, which was a cartoon I grew up with He-Man. The character's named He-Man, and now instead of it being about He-Man and Skeletor, it's about Teela, her black girlfriend, and Eva Lynn are the protagonists. So even a show called He-Man has now become about a strong female who don't need no man. The point being, you and I can sit and laugh about this, right? Or we can write articles.
Actually, I would like to tour those camps. I mean, just to see what I felt there.
Complaining about it. I'm sure, I haven't looked at the message board, the He-Man.
But most of them aren't in Germany. Most of them were in Poland.
Fandom. There's a lot of people who are like, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people like, despite this, it's good. A lot of people like, oh, whatever. We can have a discussion. We cannot wrap our heads around what it's like if literally everything was in the vein of politics and a certain specific politics. We
When I was
cannot
in
wrap
Europe,
our
it
heads
still
around
wasn't very
the
easy to go to
idea
Poland.
that if we're sitting at home talking to our friends, the odds are quite high. One, the people in the group are going to be a spy for the government, and they're going to turn us in. We don't have no idea what this is like. When people in the States are complaining like, oh, it's just like Soviet Russia, sure, there are aspects. We cannot imagine what it's like for it to be that thing 24/7, 365. Every song, every TV show, every magazine, every newspaper, every public conversation has to be through this very specific vein. We cannot imagine what that's possibly like. And writing the book made me so much more grateful for my family taking me out of Soviet Union, Ukraine, when I was so young, because I still cannot wrap my head around what it was like for them having to live through this for decades.
I had a friend growing up, and his grandfather, we would visit his farm. It's not the same thing, but it makes me think of, he fought in World War II, and he said, you just can't know the horrors of war.
Of course, yeah.
Unless you've lived it, right? There's no movie, I mean, movies can give you perhaps a sense, but it's not the same.
Of course not. The smells alone.
Sure. Yeah. I was listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. I don't know if you've ever listened to that podcast.
No, I know it is, though.
Yeah, and he did one on the Ghost of the Ostfront, which is the Eastern Front. And he talks about the smells in there, and then just walking in fields where you just see dead bodies under ice, like as far as the eye can see. And like, it's...
Well, the end I thought was much better than the beginning.
And horrifying, but to just actually live it and see it,
I'd be grateful too.
I don't know. I just don't know how. You hope no
It's
one
good
ever
to see
has that
Michael
experience.
relax a little bit and actually want to have a discussion
At the
instead
same
of being
time,
confrontational.
one of the ways to ensure they never has that experience is for them to understand the experience. Through the eyes
there's
of
plenty
people
of things
within
to see
there, I guess,
around here
but
too.
It's not the same. Do you think that North Korea is as close to Orwell's 1984 as any society in human history?
Not at all, because they don't have electricity. So the thing with 1984 is everything's under surveillance. There's cameras everywhere. You have a radio in your house that you can't turn off, all this other stuff. They don't have electricity in North Korea. So it's not Orwellian in that this is where Rand comes in, because Rand's big point about, there's the joke about what did the socialists use before they used candles, light bulbs. So when you have these, like in North Korea during the 90s, when Kim Jong II took over from his father, the great leader Kim Il-sung, Kim II-sung, excuse me, they had polio come back. So it is not a technologically, you can't advance if everything's under the thumb of the state. So it's not Orwellian in that sense at all. Although it's much more medieval in terms of just the brutality and the kind of serfdom of the populace, as opposed to this kind of Because in 1984, they're like living in cities and like things are like pretty clean.
Sure. How does the surveillance happen in North Korea?
So everyone in North Korea is slotted into some group. So it could be your apartment building, your class, you know, your factory. And once a week, they have something called like sessions. What is it called? Sessions for something life. I forget what it's called. Point being, I have to get up once a week in front of my colleagues or neighbors, and I have to say what I did wrong, and I have to say what someone else did wrong too. So I have to say, I saw Nico was chewing on a pen and he ruined the pen, and that pen was something that we could all use. And then you are all berated, and then everyone has to have something to say every week. So not only is everyone have to self-confess, they have to have something to snitch on.
That's in his white pill book.
Colleagues or friends or neighbors in front of everybody else. So that's why there's no possibility of kind of getting together and trying to plot over the government, because this is taken even more seriously. It's not like in America where the rules don't apply to the elites. This is taken even more seriously at the top. So they're even more ruthless in watching each other and having something on each other to try to undermine one another.
I guess I have to ask, as we've talked about Soviet Union and Ukraine, like, what do you make of the whole current situation?
I think we have very little useful information, and the only thing I am sure of, and that's by design, everyone has access to the same newspapers, so you don't want your opponents to know like what your lines are and you know where you would stand. It seemed, I said this at the time, I don't have any particular insight into this region. I said this at the time, and now I think it's become, not that this was a great insight, but I think now it's become kind of understood that it seemed very clear that there was a gun pointed to the back of Zelensky's head telling him not to take any kind of deal. And now it's coming around where they're like, all right, we're going to have to take some kind of deal. So, and I understand, because you don't want to validate, foreign invasion and aggression. This was the lesson of the Falklands that Thatcher had to fight. But point being, I'm scared in some ways it's going to be analogous to the Korean War, where basically you have this big loss of life and everything for what?
Yeah. And then you just get this, line drawn and an armistice that lasts, what, in case of the Korean War, over half a century.
And I was talking to Konstantin Kisin, who runs the Trigonometry podcast, and he was much more pro-Ukraine and escalating things. And I go, is it your view? I'm like, maybe I'm being naive, but is it your view that if Putin literally conquers all of Ukraine, that he's going to have some kind of genocide and start killing, like just slaughtering? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, if that's not the case, this completely takes it out of the realm of like Saddam and Kuwait, where Saddam killed so many of his own Iraqi citizens, or a Hitler situation, or a Pol Pot situation. If we're talking about like resources and what language they speak and who, whatever, so on and so forth, that to me, although it's not nice, is really night and day compared to we're going to start maybe the Balkans or something like that.
Well, no,
we're
for sure. There was black slave owners.
People by the thousands or hundreds of thousands for literally no reason.
In fact,
but
the
I don't know
first
that I
slave
speak
owners,
for
I think, were
I'm
black.
not here to speak on behalf of anarchism, because I think many anarchists would disagree with much of what I've said. I just want to be clear about that.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think anarchists as a rule are much bigger fans of democracy, not in the political sense, but in the sense of, everyone having their 2 cents and, contributing together. Like I'm much more elitist in many ways than the typical anarchist, and they would regard that as antithetical to anarchism.
So these are the people who would build collectives, the anarcho-communists?
Yeah, but also just think a lot of ANCAPs. I think I would kind of split company with them on some things as well. So I just want that to be clear, that this is my perspective and not like the or a anarchist perspective per se.
Gotcha.
It's just an anarchist's perspective.
Sure, an anarchist perspective. Well, Michael Malice, I appreciate an anarchist's perspective. That was Michael Malice. He is the host of the podcast You're Welcome and is the author of several books, including most recently The White Pill, A Tale of Good and Evil. Before we sign off, I want to thank everyone for filling out the recent So to Speak listener survey. Producer Sam Niederholzer and I are reviewing the feedback, and we hope that you'll start seeing some of your guest and topic recommendations appear on the show here in short order. If you have any additional feedback beyond the survey, we're always available via email at our email address, so to speak, @thefire.org. Also, I wanted to flag an exciting new development. On the day that we recorded this episode, which was January 19th, we broke the top 50 on Apple Podcasts' overall podcast chart, peaking, I believe, at number 43, right behind This American Life. We even reached number 7 in the news category, just behind Megyn Kelly and Pod Save America. Pretty cool stuff. I want to thank you all for making this podcast what it is and for keeping me going for 7 years now. It's amazing to think that we've been going for that long. Almost 8 years, actually, now that I think about it. We started the podcast in April of 2016. So yeah, we're almost at 8 years. Holy cow. This podcast is hosted by me, Nico Perino, and it was produced by Sam Niederholzer and myself. It was edited by my colleague, Chris Mulpey. To learn more about So to Speak, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes. Most of our episodes, including this one, feature video of the conversation.
All right, guys, we're gonna kill it. I'm gonna play the outro. We might see you guys later tonight. We'll see how you feel and how busy it is at the plant. So hopefully see it tonight. If not, we will definitely see it tomorrow. If you want to, check out the alternate thing. You can catch me on drives. Let me see if I got the banner. Yeah, it's on the link tree there. Just go to the InDOCtriNATION channel. It's where it's mostly drives and my common one when I then we want to come to cookout. All right, sweet. Let's see. Oh, no, we don't want that. We want a video. All right, guys. Peace.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips, bruised knees. I'm addicted to her, need her touching me. Cause she got a bad little waist, and we tearing down this place. Off the liquor that we chase, got some egos to the face. Baby, I don't need no space. Coming closer for a taste, and I'll show you how I make everything just fade away. Cause she's like sex, drugs, cocaine, body so insane. Jealous of the clothing that she wears up on that tight frame. All game, no shame, baby came here to play. I feel like an addict cause she's sex, drugs, cocaine. Got a fine little body and her mind's kinda naughty. They say that once you taste it, you cannot replace it. She could get you high, all the dopamine inside triggers fast once she's naked. Her body's a creation. They say the devil made her for his entertainment, but even he couldn't learn how to contain it. Her high heels make a damn good statement. There is no replacement, a body by Satan. Cause she got a bad little waist, and we tearing down this place. Off the liquor that we chase, got some egos to the face. Baby, I don't need no space. Coming closer for a taste, and I'll show you how I make everything just fade away. Cause she's like sex, drugs, cocaine, body so insane. Jealous of the clothing that she wears up on her tight